Chapter 570. With Fei Fei as an example, Tiange specially summoned Xiaohua and Xiaofan to inquire about whether they were male or female. In the end, Xiaofan was male, but Xiaohua was female. Tiange felt dizzy. Xiaofan's voice was that of a teenager whose voice hadn't changed. It didn't matter whether it was male or female. It was obedient and pampered, so she always treated it as a little girl. As for Xiaohua, although it was also quite cute, it was the most masculine among the three spiritual beasts. Tiange didn't expect it to be female. In this world, male or female couldn't be judged on the surface. Tiange sighed and flew out of the virtual sky world with Fei Fei. Xianxia was thinking about how to refine the 3-yang real fire sword with the Xian fire jade essence when he suddenly saw Tiange appear in front of him with a handsome teenager. Seeing his appearance, Tiange burst into laughter. "What? You don't recognize me?" Xianxia regained his composure. He stared at Fei Fei for a long time and said in astonishment, "It's only in the 7th rank. How could it transform?" "Of course my spiritual beast is extraordinary," Tiange said proudly and found a place to sit. Fei Fei didn't greet him and just stood there. It never liked Xianxia, so it naturally wouldn't take the initiative to greet him. Xianxia didn't care about such a trivial matter. He looked up and down and said, "Why isn't it female?" When Fei Fei heard this, it suddenly jumped up and glared at him as if its tail was stepped on. "You're female. Your whole family is female." Xianxia calmly glanced at it and said to Tiange, "If it changes into women's clothes, it'll definitely be as beautiful as a flower. When we encounter beast cultivators, just send it out. It'll save you a lot of trouble." Fei Fei's face suddenly turned red. It pointed at him and jumped violently. "You?" Tiange turned her head and smiled. Although Xianxia was a man of few words, he could make people die of anger when he spoke at a critical moment. Jing Xingji was bullied like this. Every time he talked to him, he wanted to bite off a piece of flesh. Now, Fei Fei also became a victim. Xianxia still looked indifferent and looked like he was ready to bite if it wasn't convinced. After Fei Fei jumped, it couldn't do anything to him, so it could only glare at him hatefully and pick a place to sit. Once Tiange was done laughing, she explained to him, "Fei Fei absorbed White Tiger's breath, so it was able to transform. I'm thinking that if your bright bird can absorb a portion of the vermilion bird's aura, it will definitely be able to advance faster." "Oh." Xianxia swept a glance at Fei Fei and discovered that its spiritual aura was thick and heavy. Although it was sharp, it didn't have any ruthless aura. He then asked, "Absorbing White Tiger's breath isn't that easy, right? Neither of us can make the White Tiger's aura recognize us as its master." "That's a problem." Tiange raised her voice. "Fei Fei, what do you think?" Fei Fei turned her head and ignored him. "If you can absorb the vermilion bird's aura, Xiaohua can also transform." "Humph. You really won't tell me?" "Humph. Why don't I change a place for you to stay? The spirit beast bracelet is not bad." "You," Fei Fei jumped up and glared at her. "You value sex over beasts." Tiange waved her hand to fan herself and said, "It's more like you're a pervert. He's not as handsome as you." Fei Fei was speechless. In terms of appearance, Xianxia wasn't bad, but he obviously hadn't reached the point where he couldn't distinguish between a man and a woman. If Fei Fei put on rouge and changed into women's clothes, it would definitely be a handsome young lady. "Will it work or not?" Fei Fei said reluctantly, "It shouldn't be a big problem. Spiritual beasts are much closer to divine beasts' breaths than you humans are." However, who would give a divine beast's breath to a spiritual beast? Humans were the wisest of all living things, but they had too many bad habits. They only subdued spiritual beasts for themselves and rarely spent resources on spiritual beasts. Fine, it admitted its luck was good. Although this master always ignored it, she was never stingy and wouldn't treat it as a servant. Then what should I do? It's very simple. Fei Fei made a hand seal with its right hand and gathered White Tiger's breath. It then pointed at the center of its right palm, causing White Tiger's breath to rush out and gradually condense into a dazzling golden bead. It waved its hand and threw the golden bead to Tiange. "Take this and you'll be fine." This golden bead was formed purely from White Tiger's breath. It emitted a golden light and contained a huge amount of energy. However, the White Tiger's breath subdued by Feifei was different from the original White Tiger's breath. Its ruthless aura was almost completely dissolved. Feifei said proudly, "I've refined this White Tiger's breath, so its ruthless aura no longer exists. Ordinary gold attribute spiritual beasts can also use it." Xianxia imitated its technique, and sure enough, a fire bead formed from Vermilion Bird's breath was condensed. This fire bead contained fervent vitality, but it didn't have the ruthless aura of Vermilion Bird's breath. Feifei looked at the fire bead and said, "If one bead isn't enough, you can always make a breakthrough after eating 100 beads, right?" 100 beads? Xianxia reckoned the Vermilion Bird's breath he refined would only be able to condense into about 100 beads. Feifei's tone was really big. Of course, if he really planned to feed it to spiritual beasts, it wouldn't be a big deal. After the Vermilion Bird's breath was used up, he could continue refining it from the Yang spiritual bead. It would just take some time. Xianxia thought for a moment and made a decision. "In the next few days, I'll condense all the Vermilion Bird's breath into a fire bead. Spiritual beasts advancing will also help us." Immortal nodded. Xianxia's bright bird was already in the peak of the 7th rank. If it could advance, it would be an 8th rank spiritual beast, equivalent to the early stage of the nascent soul realm. With the help of an early stage nascent soul spiritual beast, its strength would greatly improve. Old Donkey Ma, the individual cultivator in Yunzhong, was able to suppress those late-stage nascent soul cultivators because he had an 8th rank spiritual beast. As for herself, Xiaofan was in the 6th rank, Xiaohua would make a breakthrough soon, and Feifei had just reached the 7th rank, so she couldn't count on it for the time being. However, she had a nascent soul puppet, so she wouldn't be too far behind. As for the fire bead, it was good to prepare it first. Once Xiaohua made a breakthrough, its strength would rise again. After Xianxia made his decision, he returned to the closed-door meditation room to condense the fire bead. Immortal asked for his Qiankuan ring and her own, planning to sort it out. As for Feifei, Immortal gave it her identity jade tablet and told it to go to the steward's hall to ask for a set of sect clothes. Later, no one would question it when it appeared in the sect. The three of them went about their own business. In the cultivation room, Immortal casually opened Xianxia's Qiankuan ring and poured out a pile of things. The pile directly took up more than half of the stone room, including many Qiankuan bags. Looking at the pile of things, Immortal muttered to herself after a long time, "This guy turns out to be so rich?" She always thought she was rich enough, but she didn't expect Xianxia to have more than her. Now that she thought about it carefully, it didn't seem strange at all. Before she existed, he was already a core formation cultivator, and he liked to go to dangerous places. When he was building his foundation, he and Jing Xingji discovered the ruins of an ancient sect. After he formed his gold core, he went to Demonic Mountain, and countless cultivators died in his hands. Coupled with the sect's offerings and the gifts from Lord Daoist Jinghe, his accumulation was much higher than his cultivation consumption. Living more than 100 years longer than her, he really didn't live in vain. Xianxia had already sorted out the important things and put them away. Immortal looked at them and put away several marked Qiankuan bags first. Then she poured out all kinds of things in the Qiankuan bags, including high-grade magic weapons, rare materials, high-grade panaceas, high-grade spirit stones, and other valuable things, into her Qiankuan ring. Then she opened her own Qiankuan ring and did the same. After doing this, she called Shui Linbo with a voice transmission. As soon as Shui Linbo came in, she was almost blinded by the light. However, she only took a glance and said respectfully, "Auntie, what can I do for you?" Immortal pointed to the things that occupied half of the cultivation room and said, "Open a stone room, sort these things, and put them away." Without hesitation, Shui Linbo put these things into the Qiankuan bag and went to open a stone room. The location of Xianxia's Immortal's cave was remote. The exit was on an uninhabited hilltop, and a stone path was opened inside the Immortal's cave, leading to a canyon on Clear Spring Peak. This canyon was extremely deep, surrounded by cliffs and uninhabited. mountains and rivers fell around it, forming a waterfall that washed the bottom of the canyon into a deep pool called the Extreme Abyss Pool. Because of its special location, this pool was extremely cold. Huge chunks of ice floated on the surface of the water and didn't melt all year round, just like the northernmost land. After Shui Linbo arrived, she rearranged the exit leading to the Extreme Abyss Pool and built a wooden cloister next to the Extreme Abyss Pool, which was a good place to view the scenery. Shui Linbo was born by the sea and liked water by nature. She also chose a water attribute cultivation technique, so she usually cultivated in the wooden house. After receiving Mo Tiange's order, she opened several stone rooms near the Extreme Abyss Pool as a collection room. After doing all this, Shui Linbo came back to report to Mo Tiange. Mo Tiange went to take a look and was very satisfied. She set up formations and restrictions in each collection room and closed the collection room. If there were no accidents, the four of them would all leave the mountain, so it was inconvenient to hand over the collection room to others. After doing this, news finally came from Kuanzhong City. After summoning the two of them to Blue Phoenix Peak, Lord Daoist Miaoi went straight to the point. Senior Marshal Brother Xiangyang sent a message. The two of you will go to Kuanzhong City to replace Senior Marshal Brother Huayan and Junior Marshal Brother Lingxi. You'll leave in half a month. Senior Marshal Sister Miaoi, what's the current situation? Qin Shi asked when he saw her frown. Lord Daoist Miaoi said, Kuanzhong City is fine, but Demonic Mountain suffered a small loss. The most important thing is the Eastern Sea. We can't transfer people there right now, so Fairy Fengqing is in charge for the time being. She said, if I'm not mistaken, you'll most likely be transferred to the Eastern Sea if you go to Kuanzhong City. Mo Tiange nodded. It would be best if they really went to the Eastern Sea. As a guest elder of Bichuan Court, she knew Bichuan Court was in trouble, so she should go and take a look. In addition, you'll take 6 core formation cultivators and 100 foundation building disciples with you. Miaoi paused and said, my disciple Fei Shuang will also go with you. If you have time, please take care of her. Mo Tiange was stunned. The Fei Shuang Lord Daoist Miaoi mentioned was Wu Fei Shuang, Bai Yanfei's Dao companion, Senior Marshal Sister Wu. After marrying Bai Yanfei, she hadn't left the mountain for 100 years. Miaoi sighed and smiled bitterly. She's 200 years old. She can't afford to delay any longer. Mo Tiange understood what Lord Daoist Miaoi was implying. Bai Yanfei was Lord Daoist Xiangyang's disciple and had a single spiritual root, so the possibility of him advancing to the nascent soul realm was very high. As his Dao companion, how could Wu Feishuang not even reach the core formation realm? Unfortunately, this senior martial sister Wu was willing to be a virtuous wife, so Lord Daoist Miaoi worried a lot about this disciple of hers. This time, Lord Daoist Miaoi probably made up her mind. Otherwise, if she grew older and reached 300 years old, the possibility of her advancing to the core formation realm would be very low. At that time, what status would she have in Bai Yanfei's heart? Mo Tiange said, rest assured, senior martial sister. Just leave it to us. Chapter 571. Half a month later, Mo Tiange, Qin Shi, and a group of disciples left Mount Taikang. There were 6 core formation cultivators in the group, 1 from each of the 6 peaks. Among them, 5 were familiar faces. Morning Sun Peaks by Yanfei's Daoist title was Jifei. Clear Spring Peaks Yijingwen's Daoist title was Chongyun. Sweet Dew Peaks Han Qingyu's Daoist title was Yunyu. Drifting Cloud Peaks Jiangmin's Daoist title was Wu Hua. Soul's Retreat Peaks Guangzhu's Daoist title was Han Qi. When these people met, they were all foundation establishment cultivators. In the blink of an eye, they were all core formation cultivators. Among the 5 of them, the oldest was Han Qingyu, who was more than 280 years old, while the youngest, Jiang Min and Bai Yanfei, were more than 180 years old. This group of core formation cultivators was astonishingly young. This meant that Xianqing School's core formation cultivators had been successfully replaced. From now on, this group of people would be the mainstay of Xianqing School. More than 100 people boarded the treasured flying ship and flew toward Kuanzhong City. The flying boat was a flying magic treasure of the sect. It looked like a small boat from the outside, but it could accommodate 1,000 people inside. It was controlled by a high-grade cultivator, and it was much faster and safer than a low-grade cultivator flying on their own. The 6 core formation realm cultivators boarded the ship and stepped forward to greet him. Green Phoenix Peak's Chao Feng was Lord Daoist Miaoi's disciple, but he was only about 300 years old. Among core formation cultivators, he could be considered young. However, aside from Qin Shi, who was about the same age as him, everyone else was younger than him. After Chao Feng, Kuang Zhu stepped forward and clasped his hands in greeting. He said faintly, "Greetings, martial uncles." Mo Tiange knew he had a cold temperament. It wasn't because he had a problem with them, so she smiled back at him. She really wanted to call him senior brother Kuang Zhu, but she was already a nascent soul Dao Lord. She couldn't be so indifferent. Martial Uncle Shoujing, Martial Uncle Qingwei. Jiang Min stepped forward to greet Mo Tiange. Her expression was cold, but when she looked at Mo Tiange, a fleeting smile appeared on her face. Mo Tiange couldn't help but sigh inwardly as she recalled that spoiled and lively junior martial sister Jiang from more than 100 years ago. Martial Uncle Shoujing, Martial Uncle Qingwei. Han Qingyu walked towards them with a smile. She was still as steady and kind as before. She was the impeccable eldest senior sister. Regardless of the time, she would always behave appropriately, gently, and amiably. Yi Jingwen didn't step forward, but he smiled brilliantly and cupped his hands towards them. The 5 of them had already greeted each other. Bai Yanfei, who was not far away, had a conflicted look on his face, hesitating whether he should step forward or not. After that farce, Lord Daoist Jinyang ordered him to go into closed-door meditation and never went to Clear Spring Peak again. Several dozen years later, when a storm raged on Clear Spring Peak and a shocking core formation celestial phenomenon appeared, he finally knew senior martial sister Mo had formed her gold core. He thought his innate talent was outstanding, so he was proud and complacent in front of her. It was only later that he discovered this senior martial sister Mo had better qualifications than him, and she also had a tougher willpower than him. She was ahead of him in both the foundation building and core formation realms. She was like the most perfect part of the stage. She made him gray and pale and hideous. After witnessing her forming her gold core, he finally understood his position. Even if he had a single spiritual root that was hard to come by in 100 years, he would only be able to take a few more steps than others on the immortal path. This couldn't allow him to look down on all living beings, nor could it allow him to reach the heavens in a single bound. 50 years later, he finally formed his gold core. However, compared to his aptitude, this achievement was barely satisfactory. Compared to the 3 most outstanding disciples of Xianxia school, it was simply nothing. He often recalled that year on that uninhabited mountaintop, where he boasted that if he was given 100 years, he would definitely trample Qin Shoujing under his feet. In the end, he only entered the gold core formation realm when he was 130 years old. Compared to Qin Shoujing, who was 78 years old, he was almost half as old. When he formed his gold core, Qin Shoujing was already in the nascent soul realm. Now, he was only in the middle stage of the core formation realm, but senior martial sister Mo, who was only a few years older than him, had already formed her nascent soul. He couldn't help but have deep doubts about himself. Was this path really suitable for him? Why was Qin Shoujing, who had double spiritual roots, able to leave him in the dust? But now, these 2 people were standing in front of him, and he had to greet them as a junior. After struggling for a long time, he finally stepped forward. Zhifei greets martial uncles. His elders were right in front of him, but he turned a blind eye to them. Such rude behavior wouldn't let him vent his anger, it would only make him lose his moral character. Zhifei. He remembered when his master bestowed him the title. He said to him, "You're talented and have a noble background, so your character is arrogant and you don't care about worldly matters. You must know that talent wasn't the only thing in front of the great Tao, and background was even more useless." Having a single spiritual root was a gift from heaven, but having a single spiritual root didn't mean having a smooth path. From now on, I hope you reflect on yourself 3 times a day and learn from your mistakes. He knew what his master said was right, but he always felt it was unfair in his heart. facing him, they still only smiled and nodded. They didn't mock him or pay much attention to him, as if he was just a very ordinary core formation junior in the sect. Bai Yanfei suppressed the disappointment in his heart and retreated to the side. Even if they put on airs as nascent soul lord Daoists in front of him, on this treasured ship, he felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Tiange and Xianxia made him feel like he didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, and Jiang Min, who wasn't far from him, made him recall how childish and ridiculous he was in the past. Someone gently pulled his hand as if they wanted to comfort him, but he seemed to intentionally or unintentionally avoid them. That person's expression suddenly became gloomy. Riding on the flying ship, the group of people arrived at Kuanzhong City in 3 or 4 days. This wasn't even the fastest speed. Without this thing, it would take them at least half a month to travel with so many foundation-building cultivators. A sex magic weapon wasn't very useful to an individual, but it would come in handy when there were a lot of people. This was the accumulation of a sect. As soon as they approached Kuanzhong City, a flight light flashed in the city and stopped in front of the flying ship. "Which fellow Daoist from Xianxia school has arrived?" the person shouted. Tiange and Xianxia came out of the ship and saw the cultivator floating in front of the ship. It was an acquaintance of theirs, Feng Xiao from Biyun sect. Xianxia raised his hand and said, "Fellow Daoist Feng. Turns out it's you two little friends." Feng Xiao looked at them with a smile. "Yes, we've been ordered to come and help. You came just in time. We're short of people right now." He pointed at the high platform in the north of Kuanzhong City. "The treasured ship is parked over there. Someone will receive you. You two follow me." She turned around and gave Han Qingyu an order. Then he and Tiange followed Feng Xiao into the city and landed in front of the Wanhe Pagoda. The three of them went to the 6th floor unimpeded. Compared with the gathering of nascent soul cultivators that day, there were only 7 or 8 nascent soul cultivators on the 6th floor today. However, all of them were figures from big sects and couldn't be compared to ordinary nascent soul cultivators. Among these people, they saw Lord Daoist Jinyang. After greeting him, the two of them consciously stood next to Lord Daoist Jinyang. Lord Daoist Jinyang looked at them and asked with a smile, "Is the matter settled?" Tiange knew what he was talking about, so she answered, "Yes, it's settled." "That's good." Hua Yan was injured, and his spirituality realm is a bit unstable, so he needs to go back. Since your matter is settled, stay for a few more years. "Yes," the two said respectfully. "Brother Daoist Jinyang," someone called out. The three of them finished talking and turned around. Lu Dingyuan from Tiandao sect was looking at them. Compared to 100 years ago, he seemed to be a few years older, and his devil aura was also leaking. Is his lifespan coming to an end? Tiange guessed. "Oh, Brother Dingyuan." Lu Dingyuan looked at them with a kind smile and said to Lord Daoist Jinyang, "I really envy you. With such outstanding juniors, you don't have to worry about anything." Lord Daoist Jinyang chuckled. "Brother Dingyuan, you only see the benefits and don't see the difficulties. These little guys don't like to manage things, so I can't count on them. It seems I'll be busy until I die." Although he said it was the difficulties, his smile was extremely bright. Compared to Lu Dingyuan, his troubles were blissful, and it was just nice to discuss Lu Dingyuan. This old guy had been fighting with him for hundreds of years and was always suppressed by him. Now, it was finally his turn to turn things around. Lu Dingyuan still smiled amiably and didn't look the least bit unnatural. As for whether he was as calm in his heart, no one knew. After laughing, Lu Dingyuan said, "I think we should send the two of them to guard East Sea. What do you think?" Lord Daoist Jinyang frowned. "Brother Dingyuan, just the two of them won't be enough, right? With the Luan and Feng immortal couple's precious daughter, there shouldn't be a problem." Feng Qing reported that there are no more than 5 8th rank or higher demonic cultivators in human form. Shoujing isn't an ordinary cultivator. Although he can't fight 5 alone, he can fight 3. Those demonic cultivators must be below the 8th rank. Lu Dingyuan immediately said, "If there are demonic beasts above the 8th rank, Feng Qing won't be able to come back." Lord Daoist Jinyang didn't answer. He tapped the table with his knuckles, frowning and thinking. After a while, he turned to ask them, "What do you think?" Xianxia answered without hesitation, "If Fairy Fengqing's report is true, there shouldn't be a problem." Before Lord Daoist Jinyang could say anything, Lu Dingyuan already exclaimed in admiration, "Young people are really spirited." He then said to Lord Daoist Jinyang, "The Eastern Sea is close to Tiandao sect. If you're not strong enough, you can ask Feng Qing and Lu Dequan for help." Lord Daoist Jinyang didn't object anymore and said, "That depends on whether Luan and Feng are willing or not." Feng Xiao was talking with Ding Luan. Hearing this, he turned his head and said, "Old man Lu, my Fengning doesn't have any ability. She only managed to reach Yuanying realm by relying on us. If you want to rely on her to succeed, you can't. Fellow Daoist Feng, you're too modest." Lu Dingyuan glanced at him. "If your Fengning isn't capable, the nascent soul cultivators in our celestial pole can't be relied on." "Fellow Daoist Lu, you think too highly of my Fengning," Ding Luan said with a smile. "She is just lucky and has never suffered a loss. We can't guarantee whether she can be relied on at the critical moment." All right. When have you two ever boasted about yourselves? I've heard you talk about it so many times." Lu Dingyuan waved his hand. "At first, you said that Fengning's aptitude wasn't good, and then you said that it was good enough for her to form her gold core. When she formed her nascent soul, you said it was a coincidence. If it was really so coincidental, wouldn't there be nascent soul cultivators everywhere in the celestial pole?" Ding Luan Feng Xiao smiled and said nothing. "You two should just say something. Are you willing to let Fengning go with you?" Ding Luan muttered, "That's fine. It'll be good for her to see real young talents." She then shifted her gaze towards Emotienga and Qinxi. Chapter 572. What's Lu Dingyuan planning? Emotienga asked in private. Qinxi curled his lips into a smile. "He's borrowing power. Tiandao sect is on Demonic Mountain, close to the Eastern Sea. Now that we're fighting against the Devil Path, Tiandao sect is on the front line. If the beast cultivators in the Eastern Sea break through the natural defense line of Demonic Mountain and run to Kunwo, Tiandao sect will be attacked from both sides. Tiandao sect is now stronger than us. If they're besieged by the Devil Path and beast cultivators, their low-level disciples will suffer great losses. At that time, they might not even be able to protect their sect's foundation." Emotienga nodded. "Fortunately, our sect is in West Kunwo. Whether it's the beast cultivators or the Devil Path, they won't directly attack our sect." "You're right, but in times of peace, Tiandao sect's disciples often grow faster than us. This was how Xianqing School became second place for 10,000 years. Although Xianqing School's disciples also went to the forest in the south to gain experience, they lacked a sense of crisis compared to Tiandao sect, which was next to Demonic Mountain, so it wasn't easy for them to grow. Now, Xianqing School rose not only because it happened to have so many talented disciples, but also because Tiandao sect lost a lot of disciples during this special period and had no successors." Qinxi continued, "The reason why we're going with Feng Ning is because the three of us have extraordinary positions in the sect. To boast, Xianqing School's future is mostly on us. Senior Martial Brother Jinyang will never let anything happen to us. As for Feng Ning, she's the precious daughter of the Luan and Feng immortal couple. Her parents will definitely be well prepared if she's sent. That way, he won't have to worry about the Eastern Sea. You're also confident in your strength, right?" Emotienga smiled at him. Qinxi chuckled. "All right, I won't be ashamed to say it. First, a middle-stage cultivator could fight against several early-stage cultivators. Second, the matter of him crossing the Southern Sea by force was spread after he returned. Moreover, the Celestial Pole had dealings with Yunzhong. In Yunzhong, he easily killed Mei Feng and dealt with several big forces, so his fierce reputation spread back to the Celestial Pole. They didn't rest for long in Kuanzhong City before setting off for the Eastern Sea. Among the 6 core formation cultivators they brought with them, Lord Daoist Jinyang asked Bai Yanfei to go with them. Emotienga, on the other hand, took the initiative to ask Kuang Zhu. This senior Martial brother's medical skills were excellent. With him by their side, the number of casualties would be greatly reduced. Among the Foundation establishment cultivators, Wu Feishuang had already decided to follow them. Shui Linhua also wanted to return to the East Sea, which was her hometown. As for Yi Zhenji, he stayed in Kuanzhong City to fight against the beast cultivators. Several days later, 10 core formation cultivators and 300 foundation building disciples from various sects boarded the flying ship and headed for the Eastern Sea. When they boarded the ship, they finally saw the precious daughter of the Luan and Phoenix immortal couple, Feng Ning. Ding Luan and Feng Xiao always said that Feng Ning was spoiled, unruly, had poor aptitude, bad temper, and unstable temperament. In short, she was full of shortcomings. It wasn't until she saw Feng Ning that Mo Tiange realized this couple was purely lying through their teeth. Feng Ning was extremely beautiful, 50% resembling Ding Luan and 30% resembling Feng Xiao. These two were like a perfect couple, so of course, their daughter couldn't be any worse. As soon as she boarded the ship, she politely greeted Qin. She then stood quietly on the side. Although she was a bit cold, she wasn't rude at all. Mo Tiange said through voice transmission, "This Miss Feng doesn't look like a spoiled and unruly young lady. Luan and Feng aren't telling the truth." Qin she smiled and said, "They're being sarcastic. They say things about their daughter, but in fact, they spoil her so much that they can't tell right from wrong. In Biyun sect, she's the real Empress Dowager. Whatever she says, the couple will definitely do it. If she says the sun rises in the west, they won't say it rises in the east." Mo Tiange secretly glanced at Feng Ning and said, "Even with such a doting method, this Miss Feng isn't spoiled rotten." "How do you know she's not spoiled rotten? In front of outsiders, she's quite well behaved, but in front of her parents, she does a lot of unreasonable things." Mo Tiange stared at him. "You know so much. Are you very familiar with them?" Qin she paused and said, "Master and Luan and Feng are friends, and I've seen Feng Ning several times. I heard these things from Master. He wouldn't say that Ding Luan once wanted to marry Feng Ning to him. Although it was a joke, that couple might have the same idea. However, at that time, he only had cultivation in his heart, so he kept a respectful distance from Feng Ning's spoiled ways. Until Lord Daoist Jing has said he had someone else in his heart on Demonic Mountain, Ding Luan never made such a joke again. No matter how outstanding he was, Feng Ning was the beloved daughter of the Luan and Feng immortal couple. She was also very beautiful, so there were many people who liked her. Among them, there was no lack of talented and good-looking cultivators with extraordinary backgrounds. Although Ding Luan also felt a bit regretful when he was in the nascent soul realm, if she made a move earlier, Mo Tiange wouldn't have had any chance. Qin she made up his mind not to say a word about these things. He originally didn't have any ideas about Feng Ning. If he said it, Mo Tiange would have something to use against him. If Mo Tiange took it out when she was unhappy, he would have to shut up. 2 days later, the flying boat arrived at the east of Kunwo. The two of them stood at the bow, watching the forest under their feet slowly receding. Suddenly, they saw 2 mountain peaks that were side by side. There. Mo Tiange stared at that place with a complicated look. Qin she swept his gaze over and said softly, "Yunwu sect." She hadn't been here since she left Yunwu sect when she was in the aura refining realm. After 170 years, Mount Yunwu must have changed beyond recognition. The former disciples who didn't die probably all became foundation building cultivators. They might have heard of Qin Shoujing and Mo Qingwei's names, but they would never imagine that they were once ordinary disciples of Yunwu sect. Mo Tiange remembered Wang Qianyi and Shen Bing she met on Demonic Mountain and said, "I wonder if anyone formed their gold core." As for nascent soul cultivators, there was no need to think about it. All nascent soul cultivators in the Celestial Pole had been to Kuanzhong City. During the few days they were in Kuanzhong City, they never heard of any nascent soul cultivators from Yunwu sect. Presumably, after that nascent soul elder of Xixia sect passed away, no one from the 3 cultivation groups advanced to the nascent soul realm, right? Those old friends of Yunwu sect all had ordinary aptitudes. If they were in Shenqing school, they wouldn't be ranked at all. Even if they encountered great fated chances and could form their nascent souls, it would take at least 100 years. Yunwu sect gradually went far away. After a long time, Xianxia said, I once asked the Stewards Hall about Yunwu sect. The Stewards Hall reported that 2 core formation cultivators from Jiang clan were seriously injured by me and haven't been able to recover. 100 years ago, they were killed by the former core formation elder of Yunwu sect. Jiang clan's cultivators were all slaughtered, leaving only some insignificant mortals who were expelled from Mount Yunwu. Although several of Yunwu sect's core formation elders were killed by Xianxia sect, there were always some who escaped with their lives, and there were also some who endured the humiliation. Without Xianxia sect, it was basically impossible for Jiang clan to control Yunwu sect. Tiange sighed and said, when they were arrogant and despotic, they never thought this day would come, right? Xianxia smiled and said, in addition, I have good news for you. Senior Marshal Brother Jiang formed his gold core and came back. Now, he's a nominal guest elder of Yunwu sect. He formed his gold core? Why didn't he send me a message? Xianxia said, did you forget you disappeared in the celestial pole for almost 100 years? Senior Marshal Brother Jiang once sent me a message, but you weren't there at that time. As for now, I reckon he already knows you're back in the celestial pole. I just don't know if he's still willing to be friends with you. Tiange thought about it but eventually shook her head. If it was someone else, they might have known she formed her nascent soul and deliberately tried to curry favor with her. But Jiang Shanghong wasn't necessarily the same. He was quite proud, so maybe he wouldn't look for her anymore. When she had time, she should go to Zhengfa sect and take a look. After passing Yunwu sect, they soon arrived at Demonic Mountain. This part of the mountain range went past Tiandao sect and went deep into the belly of Kunwu. Looking down from the sky, it looked like a claw coming at an angle and surrounding Tiandao sect. This was the remnant of Demonic Mountain, so the devil aura here wasn't strong. However, the airflow was turbulent and the aura was strange. Because Demonic Mountain was such a dangerous place, cultivators below the nascent soul realm couldn't cross it and could only rely on Bichuan Court's transporting formation to go to the Eastern Sea. Now that they had a flying boat and a nascent soul cultivator to oversee them, they could directly cross Demonic Mountain, which was a bit better than using a transporting formation because transporting formation cost a lot. Transporting hundreds of people would cost a lot. In fact, Yunzhong was still more convenient. Transporting formations were widespread, and the cost was also low. The level of formations in the celestial pole couldn't compare to Yunzhong's, and the number of transporting formations there was pitifully low. Well, she had Mo Yaoqing's notes, so she also knew about transporting formations in Yunzhong. When would she pass them on to the formation masters in the sect so that the Immortal Alliance could use spirit stones to build a transporting formation in the celestial pole? That would be much more convenient. After entering the boundary of Demonic Mountain, countless devil aura gales rushed towards the treasured ship. Xianxia had already activated the treasured ship's defensive formation. With a buzzing sound, a light barrier floated around the treasured ship. The devil aura gales hit the light barrier, but they didn't affect it in the slightest. This flying boat could be considered a top-grade magic weapon. Not only could it carry people, but it also had several formations that could be used for both offense and defense. After spending half a day, the treasure boat finally left the boundary of Demonic Mountain and saw the sea in the distance. Tiange immediately saw Bichuan Court. The Great Protective Formation was still intact, and the sect didn't change much. As for Linhai Town, it had already become a wasteland. What a pity! Tiange thought to herself. Linhai Town was breached, and countless people died under the claws of demonic beasts. The hatred between demonic beasts and humans was monstrous and irreconcilable. After the treasure boat entered the Eastern Sea, a flight light flashed from Bichuan Court and stopped in front of them. She was dressed in red and her phoenix eyes were full of power. She was Tiandao sect's Fairy Fengqing. Fairy Fengqing's temper wasn't good, which could be seen from her face. So its fellow Daoist Shoujing, fellow Daoist Qingwei. Fairy Fengqing had met them once, so she recognized them. Moreover, she had long received a message from the Immortal Alliance. Tiange greeted Xianxia. Fellow Daoist Fengqing. Feng Ning also came out and greeted them faintly. Fellow Daoist Fengqing. Upon seeing Imotienga and Qin Shi, Fairy Fengqing's expression was already a bit unsightly. When she saw Feng Ning, her expression became even more unsightly. She didn't like Imotienga and Qin Shi because of Xianqing school. If they hadn't advanced to the nascent soul realm one after another, Tiandao sect wouldn't have been robbed of its title as the #1 cultivation group. She didn't like Feng Ning because of a past incident. Feng Qing and Feng Ning sounded like sisters. In fact, Fairy Feng Qing was from the same generation as Lord Daoist Miaoyi, and she was 400 years older than them. She also didn't have any relationship with the Luan Feng immortal couple from Biyun sect. They only shared the same surname. In the past, before Feng Ning existed, Fairy Feng Qing was also a famous beauty. Many people in Kunwu praised her for having the beauty of a phoenix and called her Phoenix Fairy. Later, the Luan Feng immortal couple gave birth to Feng Ning. Feng Ning's beauty was also quite famous among the younger generation of disciples. Fairy Feng Qing was already several hundred years old, so she wouldn't be jealous of Feng Ning just because of this. However, there was one time when she heard someone talking about the Phoenix Fairy at a gathering of nascent soul cultivators. She, who had just arrived, thought the person was talking about her, so she said something modest. Unexpectedly, that person said that not long ago he took a junior to Biyun sect to see Feng Ning and was shocked by her beauty. He said she was the real Phoenix Fairy with unparalleled beauty. The scene instantly became awkward. Although someone said the two Phoenix Fairies were both extraordinarily beautiful, Fairy Feng Qing had already lost face and couldn't get it back. Fairy Feng Qing wasn't a magnanimous person. She already bore a grudge in her heart. Chapter 573. Although she didn't like it, Fairy Feng Qing still looked calm. Fellow Daoists, are you here to take over Bishuan Court? Imotienga frowned slightly. Take over? According to the rules of the Immortal Alliance, Bishuan Court belonged to the Immortal Alliance, but the Alliance wouldn't intervene in the internal affairs of each cultivation group. They were sent here to guard the Eastern Sea to prevent beast cultivators. It had nothing to do with taking over. Fairy Feng Qing really didn't know whether she said the wrong thing or she was used to being arrogant in Tiandao sect, so she casually said she wanted to take over. Qin, she said, we're ordered by the Immortal Alliance to guard the Eastern Sea and stop the beast cultivators. Fairy Feng Qing nodded. Please come with me. She took the lead and flew towards Bishuan Court. After handing the flying ship to Guangzhou, the three of them followed Fairy Feng Qing and landed outside Bishuan Court's gate. As soon as they landed, a female cultivator came to them. Greetings to seniors and Elder Yi. She said, Elder Yi, to Imotienga. Imotienga stared at the person in front of her and asked curiously, you know me? This female cultivator looked to be in her 20s and was in the foundation building realm. She wasn't very beautiful, but she had a sharp temperament, so she was obviously a person with a strong character. However, in front of them, she was very respectful and didn't dare to be rude in the slightest. She said, Junior Ingjini, the current sect head of Bishuan Court. I've seen Elder Ye's portrait and heard you were coming, so I recognized you at first sight. Sect head? Imotienga narrowed her eyes. What about Wei Haolun? Sect head Wei passed away 10 years ago. Imotienga was stunned. Passed away. She remembered that when she first came to Bishuan Court, Wei Haolun was only about 100 years old. Although she was seriously injured and couldn't make a realm breakthrough for the rest of her life, she still had about 200 years to live. Yes, when she first came to Bishuan Court, she was only in her 30s. More than 150 years had passed. If Wei Haolun's luck was bad and her old injuries were aggravated, it wouldn't be strange for her to pass away. Alas, what a pity! If Wei Haolun was still alive, with her nascent soul cultivation methods, she might be able to repair her injuries. Even if she couldn't make a realm breakthrough, she could still live a few more years. Ingjini then invited them into the sect head's main hall. Imotienga didn't ask any more questions. It wouldn't be too late to look for Ingjini after she was done with her business. Fairy Feng Qing very naturally sat on the host's seat, then took the tea served by the sect head maid of Bishuan Court. Imotienga's eyelids twitched a bit, but she concealed it very well. Xianxia merely glanced at the 3 words Blue Water Palace, hanging above, a faint smile appearing on the corners of his mouth. As for Feng Ning, she didn't pay any attention to Fairy Fengqing. She didn't even bat an eyelid. She didn't care about Fairy Fengqing, but she also didn't take Fairy Fengqing seriously. "Fellow Daoists, please take a seat," Fairy Fengqing said indifferently. "Then we won't stand on ceremony," Xianxia also replied faintly. The 3 of them then sat down together. Using the opportunity of drinking tea, Emotienga stealthily shifted her gaze towards Ingjini, who was standing to the side. Ingjini noticed and glanced at Fairy Fengqing, then gave her a helpless look. Emotienga smiled. This Ingjini was really quick-witted. This was the first time they met, and their relationship couldn't be compared to Wei Haolan's. Now that Fairy Fengqing made such a small gesture, it was as if she shared a little secret that outsiders shouldn't know about, and their relationship suddenly became closer. "Since you're here, I'll leave Bichuan Court's matters to you. I'll go back to Tiandao sect tomorrow," Fairy Fengqing said coldly. She didn't seem to have any intention of telling them in detail. She pursed his lips and said, "Fellow Daoist Fengqing, don't you have anything to tell us?" "No need. It's all here." Fairy Fengqing flipped her hand and tossed him a jade slip. She caught it then said, "Since that's the case, we won't disturb fellow Daoist Fengqing." He then turned towards Ingjing. "Miss, where shall we rest?" Fengqing was stunned. She didn't expect Xianxia to be so straightforward. She thought they'd ask her a lot of things. Ingjing immediately understood. She hastily bowed then said, "Seniors, please follow me." She then bowed towards Fairy Fengqing then turned around and led the 3 of them out of the sect head's main hall, leaving Fairy Fengqing sitting on the sect head's seat alone with an unhappy expression. Emotienga looked around. Bichuan Court's main gate and steps were badly damaged, and there were even dried bloodstains around them. Apparently, a fierce battle happened here not too long ago. On the way, the disciples who saw them hurriedly saluted them. Before Fairy Fengqing, they'd never seen a nascent soul cultivator. Now that they saw 3 nascent soul cultivators walking together, they were so excited that they couldn't even speak. Ingjing smiled and said, "Seniors, please forgive me. I'm just a disciple from a small cultivation group." Emotienga waved her hand to show she didn't mind. She then asked, "How many core formation cultivators are there in the group now?" Upon hearing this question, Ingjing showed a proud expression. In reply to Elder Yi, there are 4 core formation elders in the group now. The one with the highest cultivation level is Elder Tang, who's already in the peak of the middle stage. Emotienga nodded. But it's rare to have 4 more core formation cultivators in 100 years. Ingjing smiled at her praise. "It's all thanks to Elder Yi. If Elder Yi hadn't given us a lot of medicinal pills, the elders wouldn't have advanced so quickly." Emotienga just smiled then asked, "Who's this Elder Tang you're talking about?" "It's Elder Tang Shen. He's an old friend of Elder Yi." Ingjing answered hurriedly. "So it's Tang Shen?" Emotienga was a bit surprised. Tang Shen's aptitude was good, but his character was too weak, so the possibility of him forming his gold core wasn't very high. She didn't expect him to become the person with the highest cultivation level in Bichuan Court. It seemed he'd made great progress in the past few years. Soon, the 4 of them arrived at an exquisite garden. Ingjing bowed. "Seniors, please." The 3 of them entered and found that the garden was elegant. There were flowers everywhere, and the walls were exquisite. There were several small courtyards in the garden that weren't too far from each other. They were both convenient for communication and wouldn't invade one's privacy. Feng Ning glanced around then pointed at the small building facing the water. "I live there." Ingjing immediately called 2 maids. "Take Senior Feng there." The 2 maids bowed then answered, "Yes." Feng Ning was about to turn around and leave when Xianxia's voice rang out from behind her. "Miss Feng." Feng Ning turned around, her gaze cold. "What's the matter?" Xianxia raised the jade slip in his hand and said, "Don't you want to take a look?" "It won't be too late to give it to me after you've read it," Feng Ning said then turned around and left. Emotienga watched her enter the small building and said with surprise, "This Miss Feng is indeed a bit unusual." Xianxia said, "She's not interested in this matter, right?" Especially, maybe she has some complaints about me. What complaints? Mo Tiange stared at him. Didn't you say you've only seen her a few times? Could it be that she has some kind of entanglement with you? What kind of entanglement could there be? Qin, she said calmly, she's very arrogant, but her cultivation level isn't as high as mine, so she doesn't like to pay attention to me even when we meet. Mo Tiange stared at him and smiled. There are also times when you're not liked by women? Qin, she smiled. I'm not a woman's charmer. There are naturally people who like me and people who hate me. I'd be a fool to believe you. Mo Tiange cast a glance at him with a smile, then turned towards Ying Jingyi. Come with us. Yes. Ying Jingyi was secretly delighted. Judging from this elder Ye's behavior, she seemed to have quite a bit of affection for Bishuan Court. The two maids opened the door to the small parlor. The three of them entered, and Mo Tiange and Qin she sat down without any politeness. This small building was their residence now, so it was natural for them to sit in the master's seat here. Someone like Fairy Fengqing was the one who'd be called ignorant. She casually sat on someone else's seat in the sect head hall. Not just anyone could sit on the sect head seat. Aside from the sect head, only the head elder could sit on it occasionally. Sitting on someone else's sect head's seat would be too disrespectful. It simply seemed like she didn't take their group seriously. Speaking of which, Mo Tiange felt Fairy Fengqing was even stranger than Feng Ning. It was normal for her to look down on Bishuan Court. The highest cultivation level in Bishuan Court, Tangshan, was only in the middle stage of the core formation realm, and it was only a small cultivation group in Kunwo. But her attitude towards Qin Shi was interesting. Qin Shi's strength was a small realm higher than hers, but not only did she keep a cold expression from beginning to end, but she also didn't even want to explain the situation to him. How's Bishuan Court's situation these past few years? Mo Tiange asked. Ying Jingyi stood respectfully with her hands by her side and answered, Elder Yi, Bishuan Court has been developing well under the previous sect head Wei's leadership. Ever since we started recruiting male disciples, our reputation in Eastern Sea has been very good, and we've also received a group of disciples with good aptitudes. Now, our group has 2,000 aura refining disciples, 100 foundation building disciples, and 4 core formation elders. Mo Tiange smiled and said, You're the sect head, and I'm just a guest elder. I won't meddle in the group's affairs, so you don't need to answer me so respectfully. Yes. Her answer made Ying Jingyi a bit disappointed. She wouldn't meddle in the group's affairs, so she naturally didn't care much about Bishuan Court. In fact, she was eager for this nascent soul elder to intervene. With the help of a nascent soul elder, Bishuan Court's meteoric rise was just around the corner. Maybe they'd be able to squeeze into the ranks of medium cultivation groups in Kunwo very soon. When she took over the position of sect head, Wei Haolan told her the true identity of the group's guest elder, Elder Yi. Mo Tiange was instantly shocked. Mo Tiange only entered Bishuan Court after the Eastern Sea's great chaos. Regarding this guest elder, she only knew he had a deep relationship with Bishuan Court, but she never expected he had such a great background. 10 years ago, this Lord Daoist Qingwei was only Master Daoist Qingwei. However, he was Xianqing School's Lord Daoist Jinghe's last disciple, a genius who advanced to the core formation realm at the age of 84, and the Dao companion of a middle-stage nascent soul cultivator. This kind of background was already enough to shake Bishuan Court. Later, when she learned Elder Yi left the mountain to travel and went somewhere, she was very worried something might have happened to him. Unexpectedly, a few years later, not only did Elder Yi return, but he also formed his nascent soul. After learning about this, Mo Tiange rejoiced at the good karma forged between her seniors. With a nascent soul guest elder, who was also a famous figure in the celestial pole, Bishuan Court didn't need to worry about being bullied. Mo Tiange had long planned to wait until Elder Yi held his nascent soul ceremony, then she would send a generous gift to his door and build a good relationship with him so their friendship wouldn't fade after a long time. Mo Tiange never expected demonic beasts would attack, so Elder Yi came to visit in advance. How were the losses from this demonic beast attack? Ying Jingyi answered, within the group, the losses weren't too big. However, Linhai Town was completely destroyed, and the mortals in the surrounding area suffered heavy casualties. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for us to accept disciples in the future. That's not difficult. Kunwu has a lot of low-level cultivators, so you can go to Kunwu to accept disciples. Ying Jingyi bowed her head respectfully. Yes, thank you for your advice, Elder Yi. Mo Tiange couldn't help but smile. How could Ying Jingyi not think of such a simple matter? Mo Tiange's words were flattering her. She couldn't help but think of Wei Haolan. If it was Wei Haolan, the friendship between the two of them wouldn't have to be like this. Alas. Unfortunately, she would never be able to see her again. Chapter 574. After more than 100 years, Tang Shen had already formed his gold core and was already in the middle stage of the core formation realm. Xia Qing's aptitude was ordinary and she wasn't very enthusiastic about cultivation. Her cultivation level was still in the late stage of the foundation building realm. However, her pill concocting technique progressed very quickly and she was already a first-rate pill concocting master in the celestial pole. As expected, Wei Haolan's old injury relapsed, which was why her lifespan was greatly reduced. Fortunately, she was prepared for this long ago. She chose Ying Jingyi from her many disciples and trained him as her successor. Mo Tiange heaved a sigh. Who would have thought that would be the last time he saw Wei Haolan? Ying Jingyi said, all the core formation elders in the school are busy, they didn't have time to come back. In a while, Elder Tang will request to see you. Mo Tiange nodded then asked, is there anyone to receive the cultivators we brought? Elder Yi, don't worry, Ying Jingyi reported. A core formation elder has already opened the Grand Mountain Protecting Formation and led them here. That's good. Seeing that they had no intention of asking any further questions, Ying Jingyi cleverly took his leave. Seniors, please rest well. I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Mo Tiange answered. After Ying Jingyi left, Mo Tiange was lost in thought for a while before she finally said, he's really similar to Wei Haolan. He's worthy of being the successor she taught. Wei Haolan? The former sect head of Bishuan Court? Yes. Mo Tiange said absent-mindedly, I just feel like I haven't even lived half of my life, but I can't believe some of my old friends have already passed away. There will be more and more in the future. You have to get used to it. Mo Tiange was silent for a moment before she suddenly asked, have you ever returned to your hometown in the secular world? She was stunned for a moment before he nodded lightly. I did. Before Mo Tiange could ask again, he said softly, I'm the third oldest. Aside from me, my parents also have many children. Many years later, when I returned to the Qin family, I realized that I couldn't integrate into the family. Mo Tiange stared at him. Qin, she continued, our ancestor was conferred the title of Marquis for several hundred years and gave birth to more than 10 descendants. Some of them have already left the prince's mansion to make a living elsewhere. Our branch still remains in the prince's mansion. There was no title of nobility, and there was no business. To put it bluntly, he was relying on the prince's mansion to eat and wait for death. Therefore, we, the side branch brothers, are often bullied by the direct descendants of the prince's mansion. Big brother has a fiery temper and always fights with them. Second brother is weak and lets them bully him. As for me, I'm neither like big brother nor second brother. When they bully me, I ignore them. After a long time, they find it boring and rarely bother me. Father liked eldest brother and felt that eldest brother would have a bright future. Mother loved second brother and had to take care of youngest sister, so she didn't have time to care about me. I also hoped that they would notice me, but when Master came to the prince's mansion to take me away, my status suddenly changed. The prince rewarded me greatly, and my brothers could only look at me enviously. My parents never thought that the first person to bring them glory would be me, who they had never cared about. During those days, I was extremely happy, not only because Master wanted to take me to cultivate, but also because my parents loved me very much. He sighed with disappointment and continued to say, 30 years later, when I returned to the prince's mansion, father already had a position, eldest brother became a general, second brother also passed the Hanlin Academy, and youngest sister even became an imperial concubine. When I returned, they were extremely surprised. My parents accompanied me every day, and my brothers and sisters always surrounded me. At first, I was happy because I thought I finally obtained the parental affection I longed for. But later, I discovered that they revered me because I had become an immortal, not because I was their son or brother. They treated me warmly and kindly, but their gazes seemed to be thousands of miles away, respectful and distant. There was no longer a place for me in this family. Tiange was speechless. She couldn't find her family, but he had his family by his side and couldn't find familial love. She really didn't know which was more tragic. She raised the corner of his mouth and looked at her with a smile. In fact, this is also good. If it wasn't like this, I wouldn't have cut off the familial entanglement so easily. Since I'm aiming for the great Tao, the fate of family in the secular world will end sooner or later. She continued, before I formed my gold core, I went to the prince's mansion again. Most of my parents and brothers passed away, and then I really understood this truth. Then I formed my gold core, calmed my mind, and succeeded in one try. At this point, someone came from outside. Master. It was Shui Linhua's voice. Tiange called her in and asked, "What are you doing here?" Shui Linhua bowed her head and said respectfully, "Disciple came to serve master and aunt." She smiled and said, "This isn't a sect, so you don't need to take care of the cave. Just go and practice." This. Shui Linhua turned her gaze to Tiange. Tiange nodded. "Go." Shui Linhua bowed. "Thank you, master, aunt. Disciple will take her leave." After she left, Tiange said, "Linhua doesn't seem to regard herself as our disciple." She smiled. "Isn't that good? It means she's not a greedy person." Tiange sighed and didn't speak anymore. She took out the jade slip fairy Fengqin gave him and read its contents. Although her attitude wasn't good, the jade slip still recorded everything in detail, including the location of the demon city, the distribution and strength of the beast cultivators. Just as he finished reading, someone else came from outside. It was Guangzhu. The Daoist robes of Xianxia school had different flavors on different people. She was proud and aloof, Bai Yanfei was handsome, and Guangzhu was elegant. This head disciple of Soul's retreat peak was said to be the most popular foundation-building male disciple in the sect. After he formed his gold core, he became even more handsome. After he came in, he cupped his hands and saluted in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. "Martial uncles." She asked, "What's the matter?" "The disciples have settled down, so I came to report to martial uncles." "Is there any problem?" Guangzhu shook his head. "Everything is fine. I just wanted to ask martial uncles if we need to take over Bichuan Court's formation. They guarded the sect, so the formation was the most important thing, so they naturally had to hold it in their hands. Besides, Guangzhu didn't believe such a small cultivation group could have any profound formations. The sooner they took over, the better it would be for them to improve." "No hurry," Tiange said. "I'll check the formation myself. Rest first, we'll talk tomorrow." Guangzhu paused for a moment then answered, "Yes, disciple will take his leave first." Right after Guangzhu went out, he heard footsteps. 4 core formation cultivators entered the courtyard and walked towards them. The two sides met and examined each other. The 4 people saw his clothes and asked, "Are you a fellow Daoist from Xianxia school?" "I am." Guangzhu cupped his hands towards them. The person in the lead was a handsome young man with a fair complexion. When he spoke, his face was slightly red like a woman's. He returned the greeting and said, "I'm Bichuan Court's Tang Shen. I hope fellow Daoist can forgive me for my poor hospitality during this critical time." Guangzhu answered faintly, "I wouldn't dare," but he didn't seem to have any intention of saying his name. The 4 people immediately knew he didn't want to be friends with them. Tang Shen said, "We still have to see the 2 seniors. Goodbye." Guangzhu stepped aside. "As you wish, fellow Daoist." Tang Shen and the others walked to the small parlor and shouted, "Junior Bichuan Court cultivators requests to see the 2 seniors." A moment later, a voice came from inside the parlor. "Come in." The 4 people entered and respectfully saluted. Greetings to the 2 seniors. Imotienga saw that the person in the lead was indeed Tangshan, so she was very happy. Tangshan's aptitude wasn't bad, so it was very rare for him to be able to break through to the core formation realm. He might even be able to form his nascent soul in the future, so Bishuan Court could prosper again. No need to be so polite. Imotienga saw Tangshan looking up at her with a smile, so she also smiled and said, Elder Tang, long time no see. Tangshan's face was slightly red, but his expression was calm. Yes, it's been almost 100 years. It's really good to see Elder Yi again. He then looked at Qinshi. When he came, he knew Xianqing School's Lord Daoist Shoujing also came, so he was very curious about what Elder Ye's husband looked like. Now that he saw Qinshi, he thought in his heart, with such an outstanding demeanor, it's no wonder Elder Yi fell in love with him. Qinshi smiled at him, but he was a bit puzzled. Why did this person's face look so familiar? He looked at him for a while, then asked directly, Elder Tang, why do I think you look so familiar? Have we met before? Tangshan was stunned for a moment, then he stared at him carefully. He also felt he looked familiar. Strange, this Lord Daoist Shoujing shouldn't have been to the Eastern Sea, and he only went to Kunwu once. Ah! Tangshan suddenly understood. He looked at him and said, Junior once met Senior on Demonic Mountain. His reminder reminded Qinshi. Wasn't this Tangshan the handsome youth who followed Venerable Swordsman Fuling? Because he had a pure Yang constitution, he was caught by Venerable Swordsman Fuling and brought to Demonic Mountain. Qinshi's gaze turned to Imotienga with a strange expression, making Imotienga confused. Did she know this Elder Tang had a pure Yang constitution? She once said that when she came to Bishuan Court, she was trapped with them for 20 years and had a life and death experience together, so it wasn't strange for her to tell him. However, no one would casually talk about this kind of secret. If she knew there was someone with a pure Yang constitution, how would she react? Pure Yang and pure Yin were a perfect match. As for him, even though he had the Yang spiritual bead and the pure Yang technique, he didn't have a real pure Yang constitution after all. In a split second, many thoughts flashed through Qinshi's mind. In the end, he just said, So it's you. I didn't expect you to survive Venerable Swordsman Fuling's fall. Tangshan was a bit embarrassed. He said, I was just lucky. I went out early and avoided the disaster. Luck is also a part of strength. Elder Tang, you survived a great disaster, so you're bound to have great fortune. Being able to form my gold core is already a great fortune for Junior. The other 3 core formation elders, 1 male and 2 female, looked at Tangshan enviously. Chatting happily with 2 nascent soul seniors was also a great fated chance. Fortunately, the 2 seniors didn't give them the cold shoulder for too long. Soon, they asked about beast cultivators and their duties. The 3 of them answered every question and explained everything clearly, hoping to leave a good impression in front of the 2 nascent soul seniors. Back when Imotienga came to Bishuan Court, they also met her, so they knew this Elder Yi was good at pill concocting. If they could win her favor, she'd definitely give them some medicinal pills. Otherwise, they'd benefit a lot from her guidance. With this kind of expectation, the 3 of them said everything they knew. They talked endlessly until night fell. Chapter 575. The next day, everyone gathered in the sect head's main hall. This time, Fairy Fengqing didn't sit on the sect head seat. She just stood there coldly. Feng Ning still turned a deaf ear to the matter in front of her. She wasn't interested in the matter at all. Imotienga smiled bitterly in secret. Since she ran into these 2 grandmasters, this matter seemed to have become their task. Seeing that everyone was present, Qinshi said, Everyone knows why we're here. The Immortal Alliance will give us full authority to handle the demonic beast matter this time, and Bishuan Court will also obey orders. Tangshan stood up and bowed. The Immortal Alliance came to help Bishuan Court, and Bishuan Court will obey orders. Qinshi nodded, then looked at the Bishuan Court elders and said, Good. Since Bishuan Court has no objection, the Immortal Alliance will temporarily take over the Great Mountain Protecting Formation. I hope the elders can understand. A nascent soul senior being so polite made the elders say they didn't dare. Qin, she continued, a few days ago, Fairy Fengqing arranged everything very well. Now that we have enough manpower, I just need to make some slight changes. Huang Zhu answered, disciple is here. Choose suitable disciples and fulfill your duty of rescuing the injured. Yes. After Huang Zhu left, Qin, she continued, Jifei. Bai Yanfei answered with his head lowered, disciple is here. Organize all the disciples, including Bishuan Court's disciples, into groups of 10. Yes. These measures were the result of his discussion with Mo Tiange last night. He also invited Feng Ning to discuss them, but she said she didn't understand and that they could make the decision. Since Feng Ning refused, they wouldn't be polite. Qin, she had the highest cultivation level among them, so he was responsible for this matter. If anything went wrong, it would be his responsibility. All the core formation cultivators accepted their orders and left, leaving only the two of them, Feng Ning, Fairy Fengqing, Tang Shen, and Ingenie in the main hall. Fairy Fengqing was the first to speak. Since fellow Daoist Shoujing has taken care of it, I'll return to Tiandao sect. Since you insist on leaving, we won't keep you, Qin, she said faintly. Fairy Fengqing wanted to say something, but she was stopped by his words. She only said one sentence. How was that insistence? He couldn't wait for her to leave. Fairy Fengqing's face darkened, and there was a hint of anger in her voice. Then I'll take my leave. With a flick of her sleeve, she walked out. Seeing this, Ingenie hurriedly chased after her. Senior Fengqing. The two of them walked out of the hall, and their voices gradually faded into the distance. Senior Fengqing, the teleportation array is ready. Junior will take you there. Fairy Fengqing said coldly, no need. Ingenie was surprised. Senior. Not long after, Ingenie turned around, her face filled with confusion. She really couldn't understand why Fairy Fengqing didn't use the transportation array. It should be known that it wasn't easy for a nascent soul cultivator to pass through Demonic Mountain on their own. The others didn't dwell on this matter. Mo Tiange took the lead and said, I'll go take a look at the Great Mountain Protecting Formation first. If possible, I'll improve it a bit. After all, she was only a guest elder of Bishuan Court. Matters like modifying the Great Mountain Protecting Formation still required the consent of Tang Shen, the head elder. Tang Shen didn't realize what she meant at all. He just stared at Mo Tiange and said with a blushing smile, I'll have to trouble Elder Yi. Mo Tiange nodded at everyone, then left alone. She'd been to Bishuan Court's Great Mountain Protecting Formation before. She flew to an arrow tower with familiarity and landed there. The foundation building disciples guarding the arrow tower were startled to see her. Senior Tu. They hadn't seen her before. Mo Tiange didn't say anything. She just took out an identity tablet from her Qiankuan ring and waved it in front of them. The two foundation building disciples were extremely surprised. Guest elder? What she showed them was the identity tablet of Bishuan Court's guest elder. Mo Tiange nodded. Correct. I'll take over the formation here for the time being. The two disciples hastily stepped aside and said respectfully, yes. Not to mention the identity tablet of the guest elder in her hand, they couldn't see through her cultivation level, so how could they dare to stop her? When Mo Tiange entered, the disciples on duty hastily stepped aside. They all heard the conversation she had with the disciples guarding the door just now. Mo Tiange had seen Bishuan Court's Great Mountain Protecting Formation before, so she could see through the formation's key points with just a cursory glance. This formation was laid by Mo Yaoqing. Mo Yaoqing could be considered a top-notch formation master. This Great Mountain Protecting Formation wasn't inferior to that of a medium-sized cultivation group in Kunwu. It could easily kill several nascent soul cultivators. Because of this, the beast cultivators from the Eastern Sea couldn't break in. Mo Tiange's current attainments in formations were almost on par with Mo Yaoqing's from back then. Mo Tiange's advantage was that during the past 5,000 years, formations had been developing non-stop, so her knowledge about formations was definitely more advanced than Mo Yaoqing's. Besides, she'd also seen a lot more formations than Mo Yaoqing. For example, The many famous great formations listed in Xuanji Formation Book and Xianxia School's Great Mountain Protecting Formation, the Heaven and Earth Life-Killing Formation. After a moment of consideration, Immortal decided to change Bishuan Court's Great Mountain Protecting Formation into the World Reversing Formation. The World Reversing Formation was one of the 10 most ominous formations listed in Xuanji Formation Book. When trapped inside, heaven and earth would be overturned, and water and fire would have their own spirits. If one didn't have a certain understanding of formations, it would be very difficult to find the way out. The most important thing was that Bishuan Court's Great Mountain Protecting Formation was very similar to the World Reversing Formation, so it wasn't difficult to change it. As they watched Immortal take out one rare material after another from her Qiankuan ring, the eyes of the disciples on duty in the watchtower almost popped out of their sockets. Among them, the eyes of those who were interested in formations were even brighter. A great mountain protecting formation definitely wasn't something ordinary formation masters could modify. This was an excellent learning opportunity. After spending half a day, Immortal finally embedded the last high-grade spirit stone. With a buzzing sound, the formation map on the ground flickered and started to operate. Immortal called the head disciple on duty, then handed him a jade slip. How to operate it? Just follow this jade slip. The disciple on duty respectfully took the jade slip. Immortal nodded, then waved her sleeves. She then transformed into a white light and flew out of the watchtower. She circled around Bishuan Court's monastery to make sure the world reversing formation was intact, then returned to the sect head's main hall. Right now, she was the only one left in the main hall. Upon seeing her return, he said, "You're back? Let's go then." Immortal nodded. The two of them left the main hall and headed towards the monastery. In the square, groups of foundation building cultivators stood in formation. Bai Yanfei was teaching them how to cooperate to kill the enemy. Upon seeing them coming out, he stopped talking and cupped his hands towards them from afar. After they left the monastery and flew towards the eastern sea, Immortal couldn't help but ask, "What's going on with Bai Yanfei?" "What do you mean, what's going on? When did he become so low-key?" Ever since they set out from Xianxia School, he didn't say a single word of nonsense, and his usual arrogance was nowhere to be seen. He only cared about doing his own thing in silence. Moreover, he was also very respectful towards them. No matter how you looked at it, it was very abnormal. She curled up the corners of his mouth and smiled at her. "Isn't it because of you?" "Because of me." Immortal was surprised. Really? Was he taught a lesson by senior martial brother Xiangyang that year? It wasn't strange to say that he restrained himself a bit, but his current behavior was the complete opposite of what he used to be. Could a person change to this extent? Of course not. Senior martial brother Xiangyang only grounded him. How could he change to this extent? Then what's going on? She said, "After you formed your gold core, he changed a bit. It wasn't until you came back that he was really stimulated." "I see." Immortal understood. Bai Yanfei had excellent aptitudes, so he thought highly of himself. When they were in the foundation building realm, the gap between them wasn't big, so he didn't feel anything. It didn't matter that she left him behind in the core formation realm because he would form his gold core sooner or later. It wasn't until he reached the nascent soul realm that Bai Yanfei truly felt despair. Immortal already formed her nascent soul, but he was only in the middle stage of the core formation realm. Even if he didn't encounter any bottlenecks later and could form his nascent soul smoothly, it would take him at least 70 or 80 years. By that time, she would probably be in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Besides, forming one's nascent soul wasn't like forming one's gold core. Even if he had a single spiritual root, he might not succeed for a long time. In fact, Bai Yanfei's confidence in forming his nascent soul had already disappeared. He even doubted whether he was suitable for cultivation. Senior martial brother Xiangyang is going to have a headache. She sighed. Following the route given by Fairy Fengqing, the two of them traveled for thousands of miles and saw a large island in the distance. On the island was a small city built with stones. It was most likely the demon city that Fairy Fengqing had mentioned. Tienga was about to use the breath-concealing technique when she saw Qin take out a peach branch from his Qiankuan ring. Huh! She recognized this peach branch. She saw him use it when she escaped from Yunwu sect. Qin chanted an incantation in silence. The peach branch slowly emitted a cloud of smoke that enveloped the two of them. Qin stopped and put the peach branch away. This is the main body of a 10,000-year-old peach spirit that has gained intelligence. It's born with the ability to hallucinate. After I formed my nascent soul, I figured out how to use it. As long as the smoke doesn't disperse, other people's divine senses won't be able to find us. Tienga was curious. Won't it wither? The green leaves on the peach branch seemed to have just sprouted, and the stamens were still dripping with dew. No one would doubt it if they said it was just plucked from the peach branch. Qin smiled and said, "This peach tree has already gained intelligence. It can absorb spiritual aura on its own, so it doesn't need soil." He paused for a moment then said, "Let's go." Tienga nodded. Under the cover of the peach branch's smoke, the two of them flew towards Demon City. The two of them stopped when they were about 2 to 3 miles away from Demon City. This distance was enough for them to investigate. If they got any closer, they could be seen with their eyes. This demon city was very simple and crude. However, the whole city was filled with watchtowers, and without exception, there were more than 10 demonic beasts guarding the towers. The city protecting formation was also very advanced. Tienga said, "This formation is very difficult to break." Qin swept his gaze over the area and quickly estimated the number of beast cultivators. Fairy Fengqing is right. There are 6 8th-rank beast cultivators and about 5 to 6,000 demonic beasts in Demon City. So many. Tienga was shocked. Bishuan Court only had 2,000 disciples, and most of them were in the aura-refining realm. The demonic beasts in this demon city were at least in the 2nd rank. Qin carefully checked the map of Demon City and memorized the surrounding situation before he said, "Let's go back and slowly think of a way." Seeing that the smoke was about to dissipate, the two of them turned into flight lights and disappeared into the horizon. Chapter 576. While she was flying, a purple light suddenly appeared in front of her. Tienga only had time to wave her heaven and earth fan to disperse the purple aura. The next moment, a purple thunderbolt suddenly appeared. Tienga smiled and used the art of primordial singular energy. The moment the purple thunderbolt hit her, Qin's sword aura had already surrounded the beast cultivator who released the purple thunderbolt. The beast cultivator was complacent when it saw the purple thunderbolt hit Tienga, but the next moment, the smile in its eyes froze. A layer of golden light appeared on Tienga's body, and then the purple thunderbolt disappeared without a trace. It didn't block it or disperse it, it just disappeared for no reason. It was stunned. Several sword auras flew toward it and firmly entangled it. It had no time to think before it was entangled. Tienga turned her wrist, and the heaven and earth fan opened. She waved her hand, and the beast cultivator was suddenly pushed back by a powerful force. It was about to hit Qin's sword aura. At that moment, it rolled over and flew into the air with great dexterity with the force of the fan. This beast cultivator was a black-winged bird. It seemed to also know wind spells and was very agile. Tempest bird. Qin's hand movements slowed down, and the sword auras surrounded the beast cultivator. Tempest bird. Tienga looked at him. Qin said, "Tempest birds are naturally proficient in wind and thunder spells." They stopped attacking. The tempest bird floated in the air and said, "You're quite knowledgeable. There aren't many birds in my clan anymore. I didn't expect there would be a cultivator who recognized it." Qin moved slightly, withdrew his sword auras and said, "Tempest birds are born with the Tempest escape technique. This escape technique is extremely exquisite and can be regarded as top-notch. No wonder you dared to sneak attack us alone when you're only in the 8th rank. We can't stop you. You can go." The tempest bird didn't escape immediately. It flapped its wings and looked at Tienga. "May I ask why my purple thunderbolt doesn't affect you?" A faint smile appeared on Tienga's face. She spread her hands, and a ball of golden lightning slowly floated in the center of her palm. She said, "I also know thunder element spells, and the grade of my spells is slightly higher than yours, so your purple lightning is ineffective against me." Golden thunderbolt. The demonic cultivator stared at the lightning in her hand and was greatly astonished. "Although I know many lightning-type mystic arts, most of them are white lightning. I've cultivated purple lightning, which is already extraordinary. But you've actually cultivated gold lightning." The lightning summoned by the lightning spell didn't just have one color, but white, green, purple, and gold. The most common type of lightning was white lightning. Those who were proficient in lightning spells could cultivate blue lightning. Purple lightning was a level higher. Generally, only demonic beasts with innate divine abilities or nascent soul cultivators who specialized in lightning spells could cultivate purple lightning. Metal lightning was the strongest type of lightning spell. If it was cultivated to its peak, it would be comparable to ordinary heavenly tribulation lightning. As for the golden lightning above Mo Tienga's head, it was the golden lightning of heavenly lightning. Of course, Mo Tienga wouldn't say that she was opportunistic and happened to intercept a piece of golden thunder from the heavenly tribulation, which was why she was able to cultivate golden thunder. She gave the demonic cultivator a subtle smile. The demonic cultivator didn't dare to act rashly. Originally, it relied on its top-notch escaping technique, the wind and thunder escape, to launch a sneak attack alone. If its attack missed, it could escape in an instant. But now, it knew these two people had extraordinary strength. If it still didn't know how to deal with them, it might die here before it could even use the wind and thunder escape. After thinking for a while, it was just about to say something like, "See you later," and escape, but it suddenly turned its head and looked in the direction of the demon city. Several flight lights emerged from the demon city and flew towards them. The demonic cultivator was delighted. Without saying a word, it used the wind and thunder escape in a flash and flew 1,000 feet away from them. For nascent soul cultivators, this distance wasn't safe, but if it was too far away, it would be worried that they would disappear without a trace. The two of them also noticed the movements in the demon city. "Qin," she said in a low voice, "let's go." Without hesitation, the two of them turned into flight lights and flew towards Linhai. When they came out, they didn't plan to solve this problem directly. Otherwise, wouldn't the Immortal Alliance benefit? The two of them ran, and the 6 demons chased after them. Soon they reached the shore of the East Sea. The 6 demons were still chasing them. Mo Tienga looked at Bichuan Court and the individual cultivators who hadn't taken refuge in Bichuan Court yet. She said, "We can't run anymore." Qin, she nodded. The two of them stopped and turned around to wait for the demons to catch up. At that moment, a flight light also rose from Bichuan Court and flew towards them slowly. When the beast cultivators stood in front of them, the flight light from Bichuan Court also stopped beside Mo Tienga. This person was naturally Feng Ning. Her beautiful eyes swept over the two of them. Feng Ning raised the corners of her mouth and showed a smile for the first time. "You two are really amazing. You just went out for a walk, but you already attracted the attack of beast cultivators." She was obviously mocking them for causing trouble. Mo Tienga put on a fake smile. "How could I compare to Miss Feng? You're sitting upright in Bichuan Court. You have a good bearing and you're also very leisurely." Feng Ning's smile disappeared and she glared at her. Mo Tienga also glared back without any trace of politeness. Ding Wan and Feng Xiao were elders, so she treated them respectfully, but Feng Ning wasn't an exception. Qin, she glanced at them, then his gaze fell on the beast cultivators. 3 against 6. He was in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, and these beast cultivators were all in the 8th rank. None of them were in the 9th rank. "Fellow cultivators, why did you chase me here?" His calm expression made the 6 beast cultivators a bit hesitant. After all, Qin Shi's cultivation level was higher than theirs. Nevertheless, they soon calmed down. Although there were middle-stage nascent soul cultivators among them, they still weren't afraid. They were already beast cultivators, not low-level demonic beasts. After they gained spiritual intelligence, the gap between them and human cultivators was so small that it was negligible. A soft snort came from among the beast cultivators. Soon after, one of the white petrels turned into a white-clothed woman who floated in the air and said, "Fellow cultivators, we built Demon City just to settle down here. The coast of the Eastern Sea is very suitable for us beast cultivators to live. If you're willing to leave this place, we'll use this mountain as a boundary and won't invade each other. What do you think?" Won't invade each other? She cast a sidelong glance at them and sneered. Don't you think it's too late to talk about non-aggression after you've killed all the mortals here? The white-clothed woman's expression turned cold. Since ancient times, you humans have never been lenient in hunting us demonic beasts. Are only humans allowed to kill demons, but demons aren't allowed to kill humans? Humans kill demons, but demons don't kill humans. She said faintly, we're different races and we've been killing each other for so long. How can we trust each other? Do you think we'll believe you just because you say the mountain is the boundary? The white-clothed woman sneered. Don't think we don't know that you're being attacked in the south and fighting in the northeast. It's not easy for you to dispatch people here, right? She cast a sidelong glance at her. 2 or 3 won't be a problem. Do you think 2 or 3 can stop us? The white-clothed woman's expression darkened. We're here to spearhead the attack, and there are still many beast cultivators behind us. How can you stop them with just you? Our Heavenly Limits Immortal Alliance isn't just composed of the 3 of us. The 2 sides exchanged a few words, and the negotiations soon broke down. The white-clothed woman's expression turned cold, and she no longer spoke. Her gaze swept across the area, and the 6 beasts suddenly stepped forward and surrounded them. In an instant, Xi's sword formation was spread out. Tiange waved her hand, and the puppet standing by her side waved the heaven and earth fan in its hand. As for Feng Ning, she waved her sash, and a Chinese harp appeared in her hand. Tiange glanced at her and thought, Ding Wan plays the zither, Feng Xiao plays the flute, and their daughter, Feng Ning, plays the Chinese harp. This family's magic weapons are all musical instruments. If something big happens in Biyun sect, they don't even need to invite a band, they can just go and play. These words must not be spoken out. Otherwise, Feng Ning would definitely disregard the demon cultivator and directly fight with her. The 6 beast cultivators stood far away or close to each other. Tiange's expression turned serious when she saw them. This is the 6 directions primordial seizing formation. No wonder none of these beast cultivators are in the 9th rank, but they're still chasing us without fear. Senior martial brother, attack that woman first, then wait for an opportunity to kill that tempest bird, Tiange said in a low voice. She nodded slightly. She then glanced at Feng Ning and also said, Miss Feng, kill that woman. Feng Ning also noticed something was wrong. She didn't know much about formations, but seeing Tiange's confident look, she didn't say anything to object. As soon as she finished speaking, the 6 beast cultivators moved. Tiange couldn't see it before, but now that the 6 beast cultivators moved together, she realized the 6 beast cultivators had all 5 elements except for the tempest bird. The puppet raised the Fusheng sword and slashed a sword light at the beast cultivator with the wood element. That wood demon didn't care about it and kept moving forward. A golden aura came out from the side and blocked the Fusheng sword. Feng Ning flicked her fingers repeatedly, and the sound of the Chinese harp rang out. The fierce sound of killing rushed towards Bai Yan. She spread his sword formation, which spread out a vast sea of fire and swept towards Bai Yan. Bai Yan was making hand seals, and a faintly discernible aura of the earth element firmly bound the 6 beast cultivators together. The drifting spiritual aura converged into a pure primordial aura. Feng Ning's harp arrived first and rushed towards Bai Yan. The beast cultivator next to Bai Yan hurriedly came to her rescue and blocked Feng Ning's music. Tiange's expression froze. She waved the heaven and earth fan in her hand, and a monstrous water column rushed towards the fire demon. At the same time, the puppet raised the Fusheng sword and slashed down hard, hitting the wood demon's branch blocking its way. The branch was cut in 2. The pure primordial aura rushed towards the wood demon, and the broken part quickly regained its vitality. Xi's sword aura swept towards the water demon. The water demon hurriedly swung its tail, and a stream of water suddenly rose from the sea, forming a wall to block the sword aura. Feng Ning wasn't affected at all. The harp clanged, and the music attacked by Yen again. One person was the main attacker, while the other two restrained the wood demon. For a while, the two sides were fighting. Xianxia's cultivation level was higher than theirs, so it wouldn't be a problem for the three of them to work together to deal with the 6 beast cultivators. However, these 6 beast cultivators actually formed a 6 directions formation, helping each other and attacking together. The gathered primordial aura constantly made up for their injuries, so they fought to a draw. While they were in a stalemate, Tiange winked. The sword aura in Xianxia's hand suddenly turned and swept towards the tempest bird that was condensing lightning. The tempest bird was terrified. It thought the three of them could see that Bai Yen was the formation eye of their 6 directions formation, so they would definitely attack Bai Yen with all their strength. It didn't expect them to actually see that it was the main attacker that could kill with one strike. The sword light as fast as lightning was about to hit it head-on. It didn't have time to think, so it waved its hand, and lightning surrounded itself tightly. However, in the next moment, it still let out a blood-curdling scream. It was Tiange who used the golden lightning to break its purple lightning, making it take Xianxia's sword attack head-on. Chapter 577. The 3 young real fire swords sword light cut through the wind thunderbird's black wings. Blood splashed everywhere, dyeing the sea red. The wind thunderbird screamed and fell from the sky. The other 5 beast cultivators looked at each other and signaled each other with their eyes. Water and wood rushed down to catch the wind thunderbird, while metal, fire, and earth attacked Feng Ning at the same time. They wanted to besiege Wei to rescue Feng Ning, but Tiange and Xianxia didn't even look at them. The vermilion bird's flames spread and attacked the water and wood monsters. Tiange waved her heaven and earth fan, and mist gushed out of the fan and rolled toward the wind thunderbird. The water monster opened its mouth and spat out a monstrous wave toward the vermilion bird's flame. Water restrained fire, and it was a sea beast that lived in the sea all year round, so it was very confident in fire spells. Unexpectedly, the flame in front of it was no ordinary fire. It instantly roasted the huge wave into water vapor and still rushed toward the 2 monsters. The 2 monsters were shocked. Half of their bodies were burned by the vermilion bird's flame, so they had no choice but to let go of the wind thunderbird. Xianxia shot a sword aura straight through the wind thunderbird's chest. Without its wings, the wind thunderbird could no longer use the wind and thunder escape, so it could only take the attack. The mist flying out of the heaven and earth fan turned into thin threads, rolling the wind thunderbird firmly and pulling it over. On the other side, Feng Ning blocked the attack, but she didn't have enough strength and was hit by the fire monster's remaining power. Metal, fire, and earth saw the tide wind thunderbird and the defeated water and wood monsters. They signaled each other with their eyes, and the 5 monsters fled at the same time, heading toward the demon city. They didn't chase the 5 monsters who fled. Tiange threw the wind thunderbird to Xianxia and turned to look at Feng Ning. Feng Ning's whole sleeve was burnt. She covered her arm and glared at them. "Miss Feng, are you okay?" Feng Ning's face twisted. She couldn't help but say angrily, "You actually used me as bait?" Tiange said nonchalantly, "I'm fine, aren't I?" "Of course you're fine." The more Feng Ning thought about it, the angrier she became. She pointed at her sleeve and said, "I'm the one who's not fine." With half of her sleeve burnt, she turned from a fairy into a lunatic. Tiange looked at her and smiled, showing her shining teeth. "What's wrong with such a small injury? Of course you will get hurt in a fight. If it wasn't you, of course it's nothing." Feng Ning glared at Xianxia. "Are you just going to let her do what she wants?" Xianxia smiled. "It's just a small injury. It's really nothing. You..." Feng Ning was seething with anger. She pointed at Xianxia and said, "What? Are you treating me like this after marrying someone else?" Xianxia paused. Tiange cast him a glance, then looked at Feng Ning. Feng Ning sneered, "What are you doing? You treat him like a treasure, but I don't care." Tiange chuckled. "Even if you want it, you won't have the chance, right? What did you say?" With Feng Ning's temperament, how could she tolerate someone mocking her like this? If it wasn't because I didn't mean it, we would have been engaged 800 years ago. Mo Tiange looked at Qin Shi. Is that so? Qin Shi coughed and looked away. This matter? I don't know. Judging from his expression, there was an 80% chance that it was true. Mo Tiange snorted coldly in her heart, but she soon smiled at Feng Ning and said, Miss Feng, my senior martial brother never agreed, right? Feng Ning stared at her coldly. Senior Jinghe agreed. Mo Tiange rolled her eyes rudely. So Miss Feng likes my master? Although the age gap is a bit big, it doesn't matter. For us nascent soul cultivators, what's a few hundred years? My master is only 1,000 years old, so it's still a long time before he passes away. Maybe the day he reaches the deification realm is just around the corner. Nonsense. Feng Ning blushed. Who has anything to do with Senior Jinghe? Mo Tiange showed an extremely surprised expression. Didn't my master agree to your marriage? She deliberately twisted her words. Feng Ning stomped her feet. I said Senior Jinghe agreed to my marriage with Qin Shoujing. Oh, I see. Mo Tiange seemed to lose interest and muttered, It's really strange. Since my master agreed to the marriage, why didn't he tell my senior martial brother? Is he joking? Oh, my master is always like this. He always teases the younger generation, really. Feng Ning's face turned red, then blue, then blue, then red. Finally, she pointed at Mo Tiange and shouted angrily, Mo Qingwei, why are you angry, Miss Feng? Mo Tiange approached her. It's easy to get old if you're always angry. Miss Feng is so beautiful, wouldn't it be a pity for you to get old? Cough. Qin Shi pulled her back. Don't make trouble. Miss Feng is injured. Let's go back and heal first. Mo Tiange turned her head. Her gaze could kill people, and she said word by word, What did you say? I didn't say anything. Mo Tiange nodded with satisfaction. She then turned her head and said to Feng Ning with a very kind smile, Miss Feng, instead of being angry here, why don't you go back and change your clothes? If seniors Luan and Feng see you like this, they'll feel sorry for you. Feng Ning stared at her while gnashing her teeth. In the end, she flung her intact sleeve, turned into a flight light, and flew towards Bishuan Court. Mo Tiange didn't stop smiling until Feng Ning's figure disappeared and turned to look at Qin Shi. Qin Shi braced himself and said, Master did say that, but I was immersed in cultivation at that time and didn't respond. Mo Tiange closed the heaven and earth fan and crossed her arms. So, she likes you? How could that be? Qin Shi said, there are many people who fawn over her. I've only seen her a few times, and we haven't talked much. That's hard to say, Mo Tiange said. Back then, didn't senior martial sister Wei also? Thinking of Wei Jiasi and her bleak ending, she couldn't help but fall silent. Qin Shi explained again, don't be suspicious. Feng Ning was just indignant. Since she was born, Luan and Feng have always doted on her. Plus, she's beautiful, so everyone treats her with respect, so. Mo Tiange didn't say anything more and just said, let's go back. She then rode the flight light and flew back to Bishuan Court. Qin Shi, carrying the Tempest Bird, was stunned for a long time. In the end, he shook his head and followed her. When he returned to the main hall, Mo Tiange was already sitting on the side, enjoying Bishuan Court's top-grade spiritual tea. When she saw him coming in, she turned her head and ignored him. Qin Shi threw the Tempest Bird to the side and sat down. Where did you come from, beast cultivators? After being stabbed twice, the Tempest Bird was already on the verge of death. It opened its eyes then closed them again. Not going to talk? A sneer appeared on Qin Shi's face. If you don't want to be turned into a refined corpse, you'd better tell me honestly. The Tempest Bird said in a hoarse voice, No need, I'll kill myself. Right after it said that, the beast core inside its body slowly lit up. Upon seeing this, the two of them turned pale with fright. Qin Shi hastily summoned his sword light and without saying anything, he ruthlessly stabbed the Tempest Bird's beast core. Mo Tiange took out her white silk handkerchief, which turned into a white cloth several dozen feet in size and covered the Tempest Bird. ****, a loud boom. The cultivators in the square who were being tortured by Yanfei turned their heads and saw that the main hall of Bishuan Court's main hall was shaking. Cough! Mo Tiange waved her hand, brushing away the dust in front of her. She muttered, "How cunning! Turns out he's long prepared to explode his beast core." Whether it was the explosion of a cultivator's gold core or nascent soul, or the explosion of a beast cultivator's beast core, they weren't things that could be completed in a single breath. However, if the beast core exploded, it would be dangerous. In the end, the Tempest Bird's beast core exploded. Fortunately, the two of them reacted quickly. Before the beast core completely exploded, the Tempest Bird was killed by Qin Shi with a single sword strike. The remaining power was also blocked by the white silk handkerchief. Only a few chairs were damaged in the entire main hall. Mo Tiange picked up the white silk handkerchief with 18 holes and sighed. This defensive magic weapon given to her by her great ancestor was broken in the end. It was so broken that she couldn't repair it even if she wanted to. Qin Shi, on the other hand, looked at the Tempest Bird that had exploded into a pile of rotten flesh with pity. The body of an 8th-rank demonic beast was full of treasures. If he could concoct an 8th-rank beast core into medicinal pills and take it, his cultivation level would definitely soar. Ying Jingyi hurried over. As soon as she entered the main hall, she was startled. "Seniors, this is... clean it up." Qin Shi said. "Yes." Ying Jingyi summoned 2 part-time disciples. "Heh!" A chuckle came from the door. Feng Ning, who had changed her clothes, leaned against the door and looked at them mockingly. "The two of you are really at ease." Although she wasn't hit by the explosion, she was covered in powder. No matter how you looked at it, she was in a sorry state. Mo Tiange waved her sleeves and cast a simple spell, removing all the powder from her body. She looked at Feng Ning with a sincere smile. "Miss Feng, why didn't you stay in the small courtyard to recuperate? Your injuries just now weren't light, right?" Feng Ning's expression changed as if she was poked in her sore spot. Her injuries were indeed not light. Her whole arm was invaded by the fire aura, and it would take a long time to completely remove the fire aura. She said with a calm expression, "I still have to thank you. If it weren't for you, how could I have been injured?" Mo Tiange smiled. "Miss Feng is really noble. For us, you were willing to use yourself as bait. I'm really touched." Feng Ning glared at her while panting with rage. "You still have the face to say that? I didn't do it willingly." Her gaze swept over Qin Shi, making her even angrier. "Sure enough, you're a thing that forgets your friends for love." Her words were a bit harsh. Qin Shi looked up with a sharp gaze. "Miss Feng, if it weren't for that, it wouldn't have been easy for us to repel those beast cultivators." Seeing his expression, Feng Ning knew she said something wrong, but she didn't want to admit defeat. She argued, "Your cultivation level is the highest. Isn't it safer for you to contain those beast cultivators?" "Qin," she said faintly, "first of all, we have a tacit understanding of each other. Second, Miss Feng lacks the means to kill them in one blow. I'm very sorry for letting you get injured." Feng Ning turned around and said, I'm done talking to you. Don't talk to me anymore." Mo Tiange took out a jade bottle from her Qiankuan bag. Upon hearing what she said, she looked embarrassed. "I was about to say that to express my apology, here are 3 9 transformations Yang restoration pills, but Miss said to ignore you from now on. I really don't know what to do." Feng Ning suddenly turned around and stared at Mo Tiange, gnashing her teeth. "Mo Wei." Mo Tiange immediately said, "Miss Feng, what can I do for you?" "Go to hell." Feng Ning flew into a rage. "Are you deliberately playing with me? When did I offend you?" Chapter 578. In the end, Feng Ning took the 9 Revolutions Yang restoration pills back to her small courtyard. 9 Revolutions Yang restoration pills weren't easy to concoct. Not to mention the rarity of the materials, the concoction technique alone had to be done from the 1st revolution to the 9th revolution without the slightest mistake. Feng Ning wasn't a fool. She wouldn't give up 9 revolutions yang restoration pills worth tens of thousands of spirit stones, let alone 3 of them. After Feng Ning left, Imotienga sat down, covering her face and laughing. She said, "You've offended Feng Ning badly." "So what?" Imotienga didn't care at all. Even if she reported it to Master, we're still in the right. How could cultivators not get hurt? Besides, she deliberately compensated him with 3 9 revolutions yang restoration pills. Wasn't that enough sincerity? Who told Feng Ning to talk about marriage and deliberately make her unhappy? Thinking of this, Imotienga was unhappy again. He actually almost got engaged to someone else before she appeared. She glanced at her. Seeing her unhappy expression, he pondered for a while and decided to explain. "In fact, Senior Ding often jokes, and Master also likes to joke, so you almost got engaged?" Imotienga squinted at him. "It wasn't almost, it was just a joke. I never took it seriously." "Fine." Imotienga thought for a while then asked, "What other romantic affairs do you have? Tell me all at once." She thought seriously for a while then said sincerely, "No. Even if I did, it had nothing to do with me." In the 100 years before he met her, his life was boring. Apart from cultivation and experience, there was nothing else. Romantic affairs were other people's business and had nothing to do with him. "Really?" Imotienga was doubtful. "Really?" She was very, very sure, trying to make his expression look very sincere. In fact, Feng Ning didn't need to tell him about this matter. There was nothing between them. The elders just joked a few times. If they didn't happen to travel together this time, no one would mention this matter. However, he felt very happy. Her reaction showed that she cared about him. The 2 part-time disciples took the Wind Thunderbird's corpse, cleaned it, and moved a clean chair. The 2 of them casually said a few words then went back to their own cultivation. Imotienga took out the thunder bead Jing Xingji gave her a few days ago, seeped her divine sense into it, and started to explore its structure. This lightning bead could paralyze a person's breathing. If she could figure out what was going on, her great heavenly lightning art would become even more powerful. While he was studying, Feifei's voice sounded in his ears, "Let me out, let me out." Imotienga moved her spiritual aura then pointed at the spiritual beast bracelet and released Feifei. "What's wrong?" After exiting the spirit beast bangle, Feifei stretched her back and said, "I'm so bored inside. I came out for a stroll." Since they were here to kill demonic beasts, Xiaohua and Xiaofan would easily cause misunderstandings if they came out, so Imotienga left them inside the virtual sky world. Only Feifei was left. After it transformed into its human form, it couldn't stay in the virtual sky world for long. It always wanted to find a crowded place to stay, so it stayed in the spiritual beast bracelet so it could come out at any time. Besides, this was his hometown. How could he hide in the spirit beast bag? Then go ahead and stroll around. Remember to bring the token with you. Feifei lazily pointed at the Xianxia school Daoist robe it was wearing. Wearing this, who would ask? That's hard to say. With your current appearance, people will know you're not among the people I brought. Got it. Feifei curled its lips, tidied its robe, took out a water mirror, and combed its long hair. Feeling that it was incomparably handsome and flawless, it hummed a tune and left the sect head's main hall. Imotienga couldn't help but shake her head as she watched its back. How could she raise such a spiritual beast? It was fine when it hadn't transformed, it only needed to comb its golden fur all day long, and when it turned into a human and had to look at itself in the mirror, but she wasn't so particular about it. When Feifei walked out of the sect head's main hall and passed by the square, Bai Yanfei suddenly called out, "Senior Martial Brother." Seeing that Feifei ignored him, he raised his voice and said, "Senior Martial Brother, please wait." Feifei stopped. Seeing that there was no one around, it looked at Bai Yanfei and pointed at its nose. "Did you call me?" Bai Yanfei nodded and walked towards Feifei. He cupped his hands and asked, "Senior Martial Brother, why haven't I seen you before?" In the whole of Xianxia school, there were only about 40 core formation cultivators. Usually, they saw each other all the time. Even if they didn't talk to each other, they knew each other. There was no reason for a core formation cultivator they hadn't seen to suddenly appear, especially one in the late stage of the core formation realm. Fei was currently in the 7th rank, the late stage of the core formation realm for human cultivators. Upon hearing what Bai Yanfei said, Fei waved its hand lazily and said, "It's normal if you haven't seen me before. It'd be strange if you did." Bai Yanfei felt even more baffled. "May I ask which martial uncle you're under?" Fei pointed at the sect head's main hall. Bai Yanfei was stunned. Martial Uncle Shoujing and Martial Uncle Qingwei? They only have one disciple. Fei interrupted him. "Who said I'm a disciple? I'm Imo Qingwei's spiritual beast." Spiritual beast? Bai Yanfei's eyes bulged so much that they almost fell out. He looked Fei up and down. The youngster in front of him was extremely handsome. His black hair was mixed with a few strands of gold, and his pupils seemed to be embedded with golden threads. He looked devilishly handsome. Bai Yanfei was very confident in his appearance, but in front of Fei, he could only admit defeat. If a spiritual beast was more handsome than a person, would people like them still want to live? "Here." Fei took out an identity tablet from its robe and waved it in front of him. "I didn't lie to you, did I?" This identity tablet was specially made by the steward's hall. When Fei ran to the steward's hall to ask for clothes and identity tablets, the steward there was dumbfounded. Although there were many nascent soul lord Daoists in Xianxia school, none of them had a transformed spiritual beast that ran to the steward's hall to ask for an identity tablet. He couldn't make the decision on this matter, so he reported it to Master Daoist Shi, who sent a voice transmission to Immortal. After confirming this matter was true, Master Daoist Shi specially made an identity tablet for Fei and registered it in the disciple register. Bai Yanfei stared at this identity tablet specially made by Xianxia school. After confirming that the aura sealed inside was the same as Fei's, he finally believed it. He hesitated for a moment but still said, "Senior martial brother, I'm busy now. Are you willing to help me?" Fei was impatient to stay in this closed place. It didn't care what it was doing, so it asked, "What kind of help?" Bai Yanfei pointed at the foundation building cultivators. "These juniors aren't familiar with each other. I can't split myself up, so I'll have to trouble you to teach them a thing or two for me." Fei looked at them. There were only 10 people in a team, forming a 10-square formation. Although it wasn't good at fights of magical powers, it was already in the 7th rank after all, so it could learn by watching. All right. It had nothing to do anyway. Bai Yanfei smiled and bowed. "Sorry to trouble you, senior martial brother." Fei turned to look at them, then casually pointed at them. You, and you, the 3 of you follow me." The 30 disciples looked at Fei then looked at Bai Yanfei. The 3 people in the lead uttered, "Yes," and led their teams to follow them. Fei walked towards the mountain gate with his hands behind his back. "Senior martial brother," Bai Yanfei called from behind, "when it gets dark, you can order them to go back." Fei waved his hand without looking back, indicating he understood. He then led the 30 disciples and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Bai Yanfei stared at the place where they disappeared, remaining silent for a long time. After a long time, a bitter smile appeared on his face. Spiritual beast? It was actually a spiritual beast. The cultivation level of that senior martial sister Mo's spiritual beast was also higher than his. Who else could he compare to? He even politely called a spiritual beast senior martial brother. Back then he only treated a spiritual beast as an animal. Why would he call it senior martial brother so politely? While Bai Yanfei was wallowing in self-pity, Fei led the 3 teams of foundation building cultivators to go out. Tang Shen, who was responsible for guarding the mountain gate, didn't dare to be careless. After he received a disciple's report, he immediately rushed over. Ever since the demonic beasts attacked, Bishuan Court's great mountain protecting formation was completely activated and the mountain gate was sealed. If that wasn't the case, how could the cultivators in Bishuan Court resist the beast cultivators' attacks? Now, disciples were strictly prohibited from entering and exiting Bishuan Court. One reason was for the disciples' safety, and the other was because they were worried someone would leak the situation inside Bishuan Court to the beast cultivators. Senior martial brother. Upon seeing Fei, Tang Shen sized him up cautiously, then saluted him. May I know how I should address you, senior martial brother? Fei didn't feel like explaining. He still took out the identity tablet and waved it in front of Tang Shen. His origin was clearly written on the identity tablet. There were more than 10 words. Fei, Lord Daoist Qingwei's spiritual beast. Tang Shen was stunned when he saw the 2 words Fei. He suddenly remembered that martial uncle Qingyao once gave Elder Yi a Fei. He was extremely shocked. He remembered that Fei was only in the 1st rank back then, but now, its cultivation level was even higher than his, and it even took a human form. Only now did he realize how powerful Elder Ye's methods were. The Eastern Sea's Fei were only in the 2nd or 3rd rank at most. He'd never heard of a 7th rank Fei. Not only did she raise a Fei to the 7th rank, but her advancement speed was also astonishingly fast. Speaking of which, could 7th rank spiritual beasts take a human form? He was puzzled. Senior martial brother. After thinking for a long time, Tang Shen still decided to call him senior martial brother like a human cultivator. May I ask why we have to leave the monastery? Fei pointed at a group of cultivators behind him and said, to take them out for training. This isn't necessary? Tang Shen said, our sect is so big. If we want to train, we can go anywhere. Besides, it's very dangerous outside. What if you encounter demonic beasts outside attacking the mountain? Fei said, I'll naturally bring them back in time. Tang Shen hesitated for a moment, then said, Senior martial brother, please wait for a moment. I'll ask for instructions first. Fei muttered, so troublesome. Isn't it just going out? Tang Shen smiled politely and said, this is an emergency. Please forgive me, senior martial brother. He then took out a sound-transmitting talisman, said a few words, then waved his hand and flew towards the sect head's main hall. Before long, the sound-transmitting talisman flew back. Tang Shen took it and heard a sentence, let it be. He then took out an identity tablet and shone it lightly, opening a small hole that could only accommodate 2 people. Senior martial brother, please. Fei led the 30 foundation building disciples out of Bishuan Court in a swagger. Once everyone left, Tang Shen waved the identity tablet and the formation closed again. He didn't go back immediately. Instead, he stood there in a daze, watching Fei slowly fly away. A spiritual beast. This was just a spiritual beast. In comparison, he was really incompetent. Fei didn't know its appearance had made 2 cultivators with superior aptitudes feel ashamed of their inferiority. It just led the group of foundation building disciples towards the seaside in excitement. Chapter 579. The Smell of the Sea. Fei stood above the sea and took a deep breath. Although it was a walking beast, it had lived on an island in the East China Sea since it was a child, so the sea was its home. Martial uncle. Someone shouted from below, what are we going to do? Fei was very unhappy that its memory was interrupted. It rushed down and kicked all 30 foundation building cultivators into the sea. Martial uncle. These cultivators scratched their heads after being kicked into the sea. They didn't know what this martial uncle wanted to do. They weren't good at swimming, so they could only rely on light body technique to float in the sea. Fei glared at them. Who told you to use spells? Soak in the sea for me. Having no other choice, these people cancelled the light body technique and fell into the sea with a thud. Fei nodded with satisfaction. If you want to fight with sea beasts, you have to get used to the sea. If you can smoothly practice the 10-direction formation in the sea without using spells, you'll pass. You, and you. Fei pointed at the leaders of the 3 squads. Come here. The 3 of them flew over while dragging their wet clothes. Martial uncle. I'll go patrol. You 3 keep watch. If they're lazy... The 3 of them said in fear and trepidation, rest assured, martial uncle. We won't be lazy. That's good. Fei turned to look at them, then waved its hand. A golden aura flew out of its sleeve, circled around and formed a light screen not far away. It said, "If a demonic beast comes, it'll warn you. You should quickly return to Bishuan Court." The foundation building cultivators felt reassured. What they worried about the most was running into demonic beasts after leaving Bishuan Court's great mountain-protecting formation. Fei Fei no longer said anything. With a flash of golden light, it transformed into its true form, Fei Fei. It ran in the air towards the depths of the sea, leaving behind a tiger paw print. The 30 foundation building cultivators were dumbfounded. In the end, one of the 3 team leaders said, "Martial Uncle's escaping technique is very strange." The other 2 nodded simultaneously. Yes, it was definitely an escaping technique. Some escaping techniques indeed allowed one to transform into an animal and run. While the 30 of them were diligently practicing the 10-direction formation in the sea, Fei Fei transformed into its true form and ran in midair, quickly leaving the coast. Fei Fei's escape technique originated from the white tiger's body. The white tiger's body was still in its storage space, and it had absorbed a portion of the white tiger's bloodline and possessed some of the white tiger's magical abilities. For example, every time its 4 feet landed, a white tiger paw print would be formed. As he ran, an island appeared in front of him. There was a demon city on the island, and a few rays of light flew out from the demon city towards him. Fei Fei's footsteps came to a halt, and he stopped in midair, his eyes wide as he stared at the approaching escape light. The light stopped in front of it and revealed their true appearances. They were a flying bird, a dolphin, and a giant fish, all of which were at the 6th or 7th level. Faced with it, the dolphin cried out first. There was a pattern to its cries. In fact, it was speaking the language of demonic beasts. "Brother Yao," the dolphin called out. Fei Fei looked at them vigilantly and asked in the same beast language, "What do you want?" Dolphin said, "May I know Brother Yao's background?" Fei Fei said, "What does this have to do with you?" The 3 demonic beasts were startled. The giant fish said, "Could it be that you're not a demonic beast from here?" Fei Fei snorted and asked instead of answering, "Where are you demonic beasts from? Why don't I remember there being such high-level demonic beasts here?" The dolphin said, "We were originally demonic beasts from the South Sea. Later, the world changed and the South Sea was connected to the celestial pole, so we came here." Fei Fei became serious. "So, this place isn't the East Sea anymore?" "Not really," the dolphin said. "The islands connected to the mainland also moved along with the mainland, so this place can also be said to be the East Sea. However, if we go further, we'll be in the South Sea." Fei Fei felt relieved, and its tone became kinder. "So you're demonic beasts from the South Sea. No wonder I don't remember there being such high-level demonic beasts here." The dolphin chuckled and put its 2 fins together as if it was saluting. "Brother Yao, you're a demonic beast from the East Sea?" Fei Fei nodded. "Yes, I grew up on an island in the East Sea. Later, I left the East Sea in order to advance. Now that I'm about to transform, I've returned to the East Sea to prepare for it." "I see." The dolphin looked it up and down and asked in confusion, "May I know what kind of beast Brother Yao is? Why have we never seen a demonic beast like Brother Yao?" Fei Fei held its head high and said, "I'm a descendant of the ancient divine beast Fei Fei." "Fei Fei?" The other 2 demonic beasts looked at the dolphin. The dolphin racked its brains and suddenly remembered something. "Fei Fei, you're the Fei Fei that can coexist peacefully with all ferocious beasts?" Flying bird and giant fish asked one after another, "Is there really a Fei Fei?" They hadn't reached the 8th rank yet, so flying bird and giant fish only had low-level intelligence. Only the dolphin was one of the special species of demonic beasts. Its spiritual intelligence had long been awakened, so it was equivalent to an 8th rank demonic beast that had already transformed. It wasn't much different from humans. The dolphin thought of a possibility and asked, "Because you're a Fei Fei, we're not hostile towards you." In the past, if they encountered an unknown demonic beast that wasn't willing to tell them about its origin, they would have already attacked it. Fei Fei nodded. "That's right. Even if you guys want to kill me, I can make you guys dispel your hostility." The dolphin already believed it. From the moment it saw Fei, it had never thought of using force to make it submit. This was probably one of the Fei's special abilities. Besides, from the conversation just now, Fei's intelligence had clearly surpassed that of ordinary demonic beasts. So it's Brother Fei. It's an honor to meet you. The dolphin swung its tail and lowered its head. Fei returned the greeting, but its tone was still arrogant. What are you guys doing here? Since they were both demonic beasts, the dolphin said straightforwardly, there are many cultivators at the seaside. We're here to hunt. Hunters. Humans and demonic beasts had a mutual hunting relationship. Humans would hunt demonic beasts, and demonic beasts would naturally hunt humans too. A cultivator's body and golden core were also very nourishing to them. I wonder if Brother Fei is interested in joining us? We have an 8th-ranked demonic ancestor in our demon city. Fei shook its head uninterestedly. Our Fei's cultivation method is different from yours. I won't be joining you as a hunter. The dolphin was a little disappointed. Fei was one of the ancient divine beasts. They, demonic beasts, worshipped bloodlines the most. Moreover, it was going to transform very soon. I'm going to look for my clansmen. I hope we won't offend each other. Of course. Brother Fei, have a safe journey. The dolphin made a gesture of sending it off. Fei nodded arrogantly. Still stepping on the tiger paw prints, it ran deep into the sea. The dolphin, flying bird, and giant fish respectfully watched as it left. After running for another few thousand kilometers, Fei looked at a small island in the sea excitedly. Fortunately, this island came with the celestial pole. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be able to find its home. After calming its emotions, it landed on the small island. On the beach, 3 to 5 Fei were playing. When they saw a golden light falling from the sky, they were stunned. Fei saw these little Fei and ran toward them. Where's the clan leader? The little Fei blinked its eyes and looked at it without answering. Fei asked patiently, where's the clan leader? Are you a god? One of the little Fei gathered its courage and asked. God? Fei blinked. The little Fei said, your fur is golden. Fei shook the golden fur on its body and raised its head proudly. Of course, I'm the most outstanding Fei. So you're not a god, the little Fei said in disappointment. Fei glared at it. There's no god. Take me to the clan leader. I'll take you there, another little Fei called out. The little Fei turned around and ran toward the other side of the small island. Fei followed. While running, the little Fei asked, if you're not a god, why is your fur golden? Because I ate a spirit fruit, Fei answered indifferently. Can I eat it? I also want my fur to turn golden. It's so beautiful. You'll have to ask my master. Master? The little Fei suddenly stopped and turned to look at Fei. Its fur stood on end. What's wrong? Fei asked. The little Fei's eyes flickered with hostility. You're a human spirit beast, not one of us. Fei looked at it and laughed. You're so small. Do you know what a spirit beast is? I know. The little Fei shouted. Those human cultivators will come and capture us, and will be separated from our family forever. At this point it started to cry. I don't want to leave my mother. Fei was even more amused. I'm not going to capture you. Why are you crying? The little Fei stopped crying and stared at it with wide eyes. You're not going to capture me? Why would I want to capture you? The little Fei tilted its head and thought for a moment. A thought flashed through its mind and it said, I know. You want to see the clan leader and then capture us all. Fei was stunned. It laughed and scolded, Nonsense. I'm also a Fei. But you're already a spirit beast. You're not a Fei anymore. Little Yuan. A shout came from behind the little Fei. The little Fei turned its head, and several adult Fei ran toward them. The little Fei jumped up. Clan leader. One of the Fei grabbed the little Fei and hid behind it. The group of Fei came before Fei and stared at it cautiously. You're the clan leader? Fei asked the leading Fei. That Fei raised its front paw. Yes, I'm the clan leader. You're Fei Fei said, "My father's name is White Fang." White Fang? The clan leader thought for a moment and jumped up. "You're the missing son of White Fang?" Fei Fei nodded its head. Is my father still alive?" The clan leader sighed and shook its head. "Your father died not long after you disappeared." Hearing this, the light in Fei Fei's eyes dimmed. The clan leader asked, "Where did you go? Why did you become like this?" You've broken through to the 4th level?" Fei Fei cheered up and said, "Yes, I'm already at the 7th level." 7th level? The group of Fei Fei was shocked and whispered to each other. The adult Fei Fei were usually at the 2nd or 3rd level, and the highest was only at the 4th level. There had never been a 7th level Fei Fei. Fei Fei continued to answer the clan leader's question. "Back then, I was accidentally captured by humans." Chapter 580. When Fei Fei was very young, Elder Qingmiao, who was in charge of hunting sea beasts, caught it when it left the small island. It only had a vague impression of the island where its entire race lived. Most of these Fei Feis did not remember it. After confirming that Fei Fei was the lost little Fei Fei, the chief warmly invited it into the cave where it was resting. "I didn't expect you to advance to the 7th order after being lost for so long. This is too shocking." Fei Fei looked at the little Fei Fei, which was hiding behind its kin, and said slowly, "Am already a human spirit beast." The clan leader was taken aback. Fei Fei didn't say anything. Its body slowly lit up with a dazzling golden light, making Fei Fei in the cave unable to open his eyes. When the golden light dissipated, it had already transformed into a human. Looking at the human teenager that Fei Fei had transformed into, the clan leader raised his front foot in surprise and pointed at it. "You," Fei Fei said, "my master was a cultivator with great fortune. Because of that, I was able to advance to the 7th rank and transform early." After the clan leader recovered from his shock, he remained silent for a long time before saying, "What are you trying to do by telling us all this?" Fei Fei smiled and said, "We, the Fei Fei clan, have the bloodline left behind by the ancient divine beasts in the human world. Our innate talents are unique and cannot be compared to ordinary demonic beasts." It looked at the clan leader and asked, "Are you willing to be like me?" The chief's eldest son, the other Fei Fei, shouted, "We can't be human beasts." Fei Fei shook its head lightly. "I just hope that my entire clan will follow my master. I don't have to be spiritual beasts." Hearing this, the clan leader was puzzled. "Since it's a follower, why can't it be a spiritual beast?" Fei Fei said, "You don't understand my master. I believe that she is the best master in the world. When we first made the spiritual beast contract, I was of no use to her, but she was willing to give me her most precious spiritual herbs to eat, so I was able to advance to the 7th rank. If our entire clan is willing to follow her, I believe that our fate of not being able to break through to the 4th order will change." "Then what do we need to do?" the chief asked. "Human cultivators wouldn't adopt useless spirit beasts, would they?" Fei Fei pondered upon hearing this. "They are Fei Feis and do not know how to fight. Guard the mountain gate? I don't think I need so many. Mounts? What a joke. They, the Fei Fei, were divine beasts. How could they become mounts for humans and plant spirit herbs?" After thinking for a long time, Fei Fei found that the Fei Fei did not seem to have any other use besides being a pet, but there was no need to have more than 100 pets, right? "I don't care," Fei Fei said straightforwardly. "If she doesn't want to, I'll just stick to her for now." Fei Fei continued, "Patriarch, in ancient times, we used to be spirit beasts for human cultivators. Now, we're just following one person. It's not a big deal." The clan leader said, "How can the ancient times be compared to the present? We are divine beasts, and our masters are either immortals who have already ascended, or cultivators with great divine power. But nowadays, there are no more powerful cultivators. Our Fei Fei Empire is no longer as powerful as it was in ancient times. Divine beast? If it can't break through to the 4th rank and can't ascend, how can it be called a divine beast?" The clan head hesitated. Besides, Fei Fei looked at the patriarch solemnly. Don't you want to recover your ancestors' memories, ascend to the spiritual realm, and return to your family? Ancestral memories? Fei Fei said, when I advanced to the 5th tier, I found the memories that were passed down from generation to generation. I don't want to be abandoned by my ancestors in this world. I want to find the spiritual realm and return to the Fei Fei clan. The clan head was silent, and so were the other Fei Fei. All this time, they only knew that they were the descendants of the divine beast Fei Fei and were left in this world. They didn't know why, nor did they know how to find their way back. Return to the family? That was a thought that made their blood boil. But could it really be done? Your master has that kind of power? Are you sure? The clan leader was doubtful. Fei Fei shook its head. I can't be sure that we can find the spiritual realm. I can only say that my master is the cultivator who is most likely to reach the soul formation stage in this world. The clan leader turned to look at the other Fei Fei. A Fei Fei said timidly, why don't we try? Another Fei Fei said, this? What if it doesn't work? We're living freely here now. If it doesn't work, our clan might go extinct. But look at him, he is. Fei Fei stood up and said, you guys discuss it? Tell me when you've decided. Walking out of the cave, Fei Fei slowly walked to the beach. On the beach, the little Fei Fei were still playing. It used to be one of them, but now, it was the only Fei Fei in this world that could be considered a divine beast. Its fate changed the moment it secretly left the island. After it gained its spiritual wisdom, it often felt lonely. In this world, divine beasts no longer existed. There were only about 100 Fei Fei that had been passed down for millions of years, and it was the only Fei Fei that advanced to the 7th rank and inherited its ancestors' memory. Strictly speaking, it didn't have its own kind in this world. Xiaohua wasn't, Xiaofan wasn't, and these Fei Fei weren't either. It alone carried the memory of the Fei Fei race for millions of years and endured loneliness that no divine beast had ever experienced since ancient times. It wanted to find its own kind and go to the spiritual realm, but all of this was still far away. It felt very confused, and it didn't even know how to take the first step. In a way, it depended on Xianxia. Although it always had an arrogant attitude on the surface, she was a person with vitality, persistent and enthusiastic, which made its heart feel hope. Therefore, it thought it should follow her. Maybe it could really find the way to the spiritual realm. Even if it couldn't find it, it wouldn't feel too lonely. Who are you? A frightened voice came to its ears. It was the little Fei Fei that was playing and saw its human form. Fei Fei was amused. If it was really a human, it wouldn't understand beast language. It shook its body and turned into a golden-furred Fei Fei, which was very eye-catching among a group of snow-white Fei Fei. It's you. The little Fei Fei were very surprised and surrounded it, asking questions all at once. Why are you a human? Mummy said I can only become a human after I transform. No wonder your fur is golden. Asterisk. 2 hours later, the chief finally came and found Fei Fei playing with a group of little Fei Fei. Fei Fei was still in its human form, sitting on the beach with a group of Fei Fei. You've decided? The chief nodded solemnly. Yes, we've decided to go with you. It paused and said, we're divine beasts. We can't forget our ancestors' memory. Fei Fei smiled, although this result wasn't beyond its expectations. It said, call all of the Fei Fei here. The Fei Fei next to the chief dispersed to look for the scattered Fei Fei on the island. It took them an hour to find all the Fei Fei. The chief called their names. Before leaving, Fei Fei released its divine sense to search the island. After making sure it didn't miss any Fei Fei, it used a boat-shaped magic weapon it stole from Xianxia to carry the 100 or so Fei Fei in the world and left the island. When they arrived at the demon city, the dolphin came out again to greet them, but it didn't have any suspicions and even invited them to sit in the demon city. Fei Fei refused. It imperceptibly memorized the defense measures of the demon city, then flew back to Bishuan Court. The 30 foundation building cultivators who were still practicing the 10-direction formation in the sea were dumbfounded when they saw Fei Fei flying back with a boat full of Fei Fei. The 3 team leaders hastily flew over and bowed to greet him. Martial uncle. Fei Fei waved its hand casually. Are you done practicing? Almost, the three of them said hesitantly. This martial uncle didn't seem easy to talk to. Unexpectedly, Fei didn't care at all. It's not something you can practice in one day. Let's go back to the mountain gate first. The three of them were overjoyed and said, yes. The Fei looked at the 30 human cultivators following behind it. They were both afraid and curious. Even humans listened to Fei. Fei majestically came to the mountain gate with 30 cultivators and more than 100 Fei, instantly causing a sensation. By the time Tienge heard the commotion and came over, the monastery gate was already densely packed with people. Seeing her coming, Tangshan hurriedly shouted, "Back off!" Tienge looked at the Fei behind Fei and was speechless with astonishment. You, Fei said, you won't let us in? Tienge took a deep breath and waved her hand. Let them in. Tangshan took her order and opened the great mountain protecting formation. A quarter of an hour later, more than 100 Fei stood neatly in the sect head's main hall, which shocked Xianxia so much that his jaw almost dropped. Tienge, who had already recovered from her shock, slowly sat down, looked at Fei from the corner of her eyes and asked, "What's going on?" Fei sat down indifferently and crossed its legs. I brought all the Fei in the world. The corner of Tienge's mouth twitched. She continued to ask, I mean, what's your purpose in bringing them back? Fei picked up the teacup and stopped it at the edge of its mouth. It thought for a moment then said, Accompany me. Tienge glared at it. What did you say? Accompany me, Fei said word by word. Tienge raised her head, covered her eyes with her right hand, and said as if she was talking to herself, I must be hallucinating. You're not hallucinating, Xianxia said. I really saw more than 100 Fei. Tienge jumped up and glared at Fei. More than 100 Fei? Do you think I specialize in raising spiritual beasts? Xianxia School isn't the spiritual beast sect. You're looking for the wrong person. Fei said lightly, the virtual sky world is very big. Tienge tried hard to hold back her anger. This was really retribution. She just angered Feng Ning to death, and now she was angered to death by Fei. Just as she thought of Feng Ning appeared at the door. She leaned against the door again and said with great surprise, Wow, so cute. Qingwei, give me one. Tienge turned her head and stared at her. No. Feng Ning stopped smiling and glared at her. Qingwei, do you have to be so stingy? There are so many of them, but you can't even give me one? Tienge said faintly, although they're spiritual beasts, they have their own wishes. I don't have the right to transfer them as gifts. Feng Ning was stunned and became silent. Tienge ignored her and glared at Fei. Are there spiritual beasts like you? Do you want to eat me poor with more than 100 of them? Chapter 581. Tienge and Fei started an arduous negotiation. First of all, although the virtual sky world was big, it was full of medicinal fields, so it wasn't suitable for raising many spiritual beasts. Second, how many medicinal pills would she need to refine to raise more than 100 spiritual beasts? She didn't have the time. Finally, what could she do with more than 100 spiritual beasts? Although Fei was very capable, finding more than 100 Feis to accompany it, she had no problem with her brain. Fei expressed the following opinions. First, they could be separated but not separated. Second, they couldn't fight, but their intelligence was high among demonic beasts, so they could be taught some simple skills. Third, Tienge could teach Xianxia School disciples medicinal pills, and they were willing to exchange their treasure hunting skills for medicinal pills. In the end, one person and one beast each took a step back and reached an agreement. Tienge would keep these more than 100 Feis for the time being. After the matter in the Eastern Sea was over, these Feis would be sent back to Xianxia School and distributed to various peaks. These Feis wouldn't sign a spiritual beast contract with a specific person, they would belong to the steward's hall of each peak. They would be responsible for treasure hunting, and if they found anything, they would be exchanged for medicinal pills. In fact, with her strength, She could directly capture these feifeis and turn them into spiritual beasts. This was how cultivators' spiritual beasts came to be. But she didn't want to do that. First, it violated her principles. Second, feifei had been with her for more than 100 years. Although it had a bad personality and a bad mouth, it was reliable in critical moments. Besides, the contract they signed was a subordinate contract, not a master contract. If she ignored feifei's wishes, it would definitely rebel. In this world, although the strong were respected, it wasn't unreasonable. After the matter was settled, Tiange temporarily asked Ingini for an abandoned spiritual beast garden and let these feifeis live there. As for feifei, it was ordered to guard the gate for Tang Shen. Feifei was taken away by Ingini, and feifei went to guard the gate. Tiange fell on the chair, rubbed her forehead, and said weakly, "One day, I'll become prematurely old." She smiled. "Why don't you think about it from another perspective? Feifei are a very rare species, it's hard to even get one, but you managed to get more than 100 of them. Rest assured, Feng Shui will definitely be very happy." Treasure hunting included finding spirit veins, spirit stone veins, rare ores, spirit herbs, spirit beasts, and so on. These were all extremely important matters, and the sex advantage was reflected in this aspect. The difficulty of the treasure hunting mission was also the highest among all the sect affairs. Under normal circumstances, a sect would raise a group of full-time treasure hunters. These treasure hunters would not be in the sect all year round, so they did not have to take on any chores. However, they enjoyed extremely generous offerings because treasure hunting was extremely difficult. Treasure hunters had special skills, innate talents, or special cultivation techniques that allowed them to sense the existence of treasures within a certain range. Unfortunately, treasure hunters were very difficult to cultivate. Talent was much rarer than spirit roots, and cultivation techniques were not something that anyone could cultivate. These feifeis were naturally very sensitive to spiritual energy, and feifei had even found treasures several times. It was clear that they were very talented in treasure hunting. "What's bothering me is medicinal pills," Tiange said with a bitter expression. "How can ordinary spiritual beast pills help feifei advance? I reckon that aside from the flowerless golden fruit, feifei was able to advance so smoothly because the medicinal pills it usually took were all concocted from medicinal pills that were more than 1,000 years old. That being the case, how can I give these spiritual plants to the pill-concocting disciples to refine?" She said, "You're thinking too much. Don't forget that you're now one of the nascent soul grandmasters in the sect. No matter how many 1,000-year-old spiritual plants you take out, they won't dare to be suspicious." "Really?" Tiange looked at him suspiciously. "They won't find it strange even if I take out a big bundle of 1,000-year-old spiritual plants?" She smiled. "Any inconceivable thing is natural for a nascent soul cultivator. The ones who find it strange are only my senior martial brothers and sisters. They're all smart people. You advanced to the nascent soul realm at such a young age, so aside from innate talents, fated chances are also indispensable. They know this very well, so they definitely won't ask." He paused for a moment and said, "However, it's quite possible that they'll come to you to extort some spiritual plants they lack." Tiange patted her chest and said, "Then I'm relieved. Even if they come to extort me, they definitely won't take it for free." She glanced at her with a smile in his eyes. "You've really figured out their temperaments." Taking out some spiritual plants wasn't a problem for her at all. When she cleaned up the medicinal fields, she picked a lot of spiritual plants that were nearing the end of their lifespan. Later, to make room for the newly sprouted spiritual plants, she also picked a batch of spiritual plants that weren't that valuable. These spiritual plants were precisely the materials used to concoct medicinal pills for spiritual beasts. After that, Tiange left this matter to Ingini. Ingini originally wanted a few feifeis, but feifei didn't agree, so Tiange gave her a batch of medicinal pills and magic tools. With this batch of medicinal pills, Ingini worked very hard. In the next few days, there were only a few small conflicts in Linhai. As soon as they arrived, one of the 6 beast cultivators died. These beast cultivators wouldn't make any big moves for the time being, but it was necessary for them to send some low-level demonic beasts to harass them. On Bichuan Court's side, they naturally also sent some low-level cultivators to fight, giving them a chance to gain experience. On the next day, demonic beasts attacked again. Most of them were in the 2nd to 5th rank, and only a few were in the 5th rank and above. Tang Shen and Bai Yanfei led the charge. Mo Tiange and Qin Shi still guarded the sect head's hall, while Feng Ning stayed in her small courtyard as usual. The battle progressed very smoothly. Although there were casualties, they were minimized with Kuang Zhu's presence. Qin Shi suddenly said, "What do you think these beast cultivators are planning?" Mo Tiange, who was studying the map of the demon city, answered in confusion, "Aren't they hunters?" Qin Shi shook his head and said, "I don't think it's that simple. If they're just hunters, is it necessary to build a demon city so close to the city?" Mo Tiange was stunned. She looked at the complicated terrain of the demon city and tapped the table with her fingers. "What you said makes sense. Just like human cultivators, they never lived in the forest to hunt because it was extremely dangerous. Kunwu cultivators always formed teams in Kunwu before entering the southern forest. After hunting, they would return to Kunwu to rest. These beast cultivators, on the other hand, built their demon city so close to Bichuan Court and provoked battles from time to time. They didn't look like hunters at all. Do they want to seize Kunwu?" Mo Tiange whispered. "We can't rule out any possibility," Qin Shi said thoughtfully. "They said there are more beast cultivators behind them. I believe it's true. If they didn't have reinforcements, how could the 6th, 8th rank beast cultivators have the courage to fight against them? That's troublesome. The demonic beasts in the South Sea are very powerful." Qin Shi had experienced it himself, so he felt terrified whenever he thought of the demonic beasts in the South Sea. The demonic beasts in the South Sea live in such a dangerous place, so they're much stronger than ordinary beast cultivators. They're no weaker than human cultivators. He looked at Mo Tiange and asked, "Should we send a message to the Immortal Alliance?" Mo Tiange shook her head. "We don't have any evidence. We'd better send a message to Senior Marshal Brother Zhenyang." "Okay." Qin Shi thought about it and agreed. Mo Tiange handed him the map of the demon city. This was drawn according to Fei Fei's description of the demon city. "It should be accurate. Take a look." Qin Shi took a look and frowned. After a long time, he said, "It's too difficult for us to directly attack the demon city." The demon city on the map was densely packed with watchtowers. Fei Fei said each watchtower was guarded by at least a dozen demonic beasts, and there were almost no blind spots. The formation around the demon city was also extraordinary. Beast cultivators' Dao of formations was much inferior to human cultivators, so they didn't know where they got this formation. "I have a feeling," Mo Tiange said, "Bichuan Court might not be able to defend it." Qin Shi nodded slowly. Bichuan Court was too difficult to defend. Although it was built on a mountain and had a brilliant mountain-protecting formation, it directly faced the sea and had a clear view. Plus, demonic mountain blocked the way, so it was difficult for reinforcements to arrive in time. Once they fell into a disadvantageous position, they could easily be wiped out. In a few days, I'll ask Ingjingi to withdraw some disciples to Kunwu. In case something like this really happens, it'll be good to preserve Bichuan Court's orthodoxy. Low-level disciples didn't have much influence on the war situation, so it didn't matter if they left. Just then, there were hurried footsteps outside. Before the person arrived, they heard a voice. "Master, Annie." Shui Linbo rushed in, looking flustered. "What's wrong?" Qin Shi asked. Shui Linbo took a breath and said, "Senior Marshal Sister Wu." Senior Marshal Sister Wu was taken away. Senior Marshal Sister Wu? Mo Tiange narrowed her eyes. "Is it Wu Feishuang?" "Yes." Marshal Uncle Zhifei chased after them. Mo Tiange said calmly, "Zhifei's strength is extraordinary, so it shouldn't be a problem." "But," Shui Linbo said, "they went to the demon city, and Marshal Uncle Zhifei can't catch up with that demonic beast." Mo Tiange was stunned and suddenly stood up. "I'll go and have a look." Qin Shi nodded. "Be careful." Tiange responded and immediately turned into a flight light, rushing to the sea. On the East Sea, demonic beasts and humans were fighting fiercely. Tiange took a look and found the situation was good, so she didn't pay much attention to it. She spread her divine sense and found a core formation cultivator flying north, so she chased after him. With the speed of a nascent soul cultivator, she soon caught up with the person in front of her. Tiange flew past him and called, "Junior Martial Brother Bai." Bai Yanfei stopped. When he saw her, he looked happy. "Senior Martial Sister Mo." For a moment, he forgot to call her Martial Uncle. Tiange didn't pay attention to him. She was the one who called him Junior Martial Brother first. She said, "Follow me." As soon as she finished speaking, the flight light wrapped around Bai Yanfei and flew away quickly. Before long, Tiange saw a huge black bird flying north with a person in its mouth. She stopped, raised her hand, and a golden bolt of lightning flashed between her fingers, striking the bird. Boom! The bird was hit, shook its wings, and fell to the sea. Tiange summoned the 10,000 miles lone boat without hesitation. The boat suddenly grew bigger and caught Wu Feishuang. "Feishuang!" Bai Yanfei shouted, broke free from Tiange, and rushed to the 10,000 miles lone boat. Tiange didn't care about them. She waved the heaven and earth fan and took the bird's corpse. Chapter 582. There was a huge gap between the 7th rank and the 8th rank. With the great heavenly thunder spell, the bird couldn't resist at all and turned into a corpse. After putting the demonic beast's corpse into her Qiankuan ring, Tiange turned to look at Bai Yanfei and Wu Feishuang. "Feishuang, how are you?" Wu Feishuang was covered in blood. There was a big claw mark on her chest, and one of her arms was torn off and nowhere to be found. Such an injury, if it was a mortal, would almost be waiting for death. Bai Yanfei was scared out of his wits and didn't know what to do. Tiange landed on the canoe and said, "Junior Martial Brother Bai, let me do it." Bai Yanfei hastily stepped aside. Tiange frowned as she looked at her chest that was almost pierced through. Nascent soul cultivators didn't care about physical injuries, but they were fatal for foundation-building cultivators. She took out a 9 transformations yang restoration pill without hesitation and fed it to Wu Feishuang, then sealed her wounds with Azure Dragon's breath. "This is the only way for now," she said. "Her injuries are too serious. Let's go back and see if Kuang Zhu can do anything. If he can't," she didn't say anything. Bai Yanfei stared at the unconscious Wu Feishuang in a daze, unable to say anything. His heart was filled with both regret and hatred. Tiange shook her sleeves and the canoe sped towards Bishuan Court. "How did you end up like this?" she asked sternly. "It was just a 7th-rank demonic beast. You couldn't protect her?" Bai Yanfei lowered his head and said bitterly, "It was me. In order to help me block a blow, she activated the protective magic weapon Martial Uncle Miaoi gave her, but she angered that demonic beast. It probably wanted to lure me out, so it grabbed Feishuang." Seeing his self-reproach, Tiange softened her tone and said faintly, "If you cared about her, you wouldn't need her to protect you." Bai Yanfei was sad and silent. The canoe sped through the waves and soon reached the seaside. The conflict was over, and the low-level cultivators were cleaning up the battlefield. The 3 of them got off the canoe. Bai Yanfei carried Wu Feishuang and ran like crazy. After entering the mountain gate and turning around the main hall, Bai Yanfei shouted, "Senior Martial Brother Han Jian, Senior Martial Brother Han Jian." As soon as Kuang Zhu came out and saw Wu Feishuang in his bosom, he said, "Let's talk inside." Kuang Zhu carried Wu Feishuang into the side hall and placed her on the bed. He quickly examined her and nodded. "She can be saved." Tiange heaved a sigh of relief. She had promised Senior Martial Sister Miaoi that she would take care of Wu Feishuang. If Wu Feishuang died here, she would be ashamed to face Senior Martial Sister Miaoi. Kuang Zhu turned around and took out a small bowl. Then he took out various kinds of spirit herbs, medicinal powders, and medicinal liquids from the medicine cabinet next to him and poured them into the small bowl. After that, he crushed them and turned them into ointment. Martial Uncle Qingwei. Kuang Zhu pointed at the azure dragon's breath on Wu Fei's wound. Slowly withdraw this aura, I'll apply the ointment. Remember, you can only withdraw it slowly. If you withdraw it all at once, she won't be able to stop the bleeding, and it will be very dangerous. Emo Tiange nodded. Kuang Zhu didn't waste any more time. He pointed at Wu Feishuang's severed arm and said, "Here." Emo Tiange guided him. The azure dragon's breath surged, revealing the terrifying, bright red wound. Kuang Zhu moved his finger, and the ointment flew out of the bowl and spread on the wound. With tacit understanding, the two of them quickly applied the ointment on Wu Fei's severed arm followed by his chest. The wound on Wu Fei's chest was quite special. It was almost pierced through, and his internal organs were also injured. Kuang Zhu could only use his special cultivation technique to slowly repair the damaged organs. After a long time, Kuang Zhu heaved a sigh of relief. He raised his head and wiped the sweat off his forehead. He then said, "Her life is saved, but her cultivation level is greatly damaged. She'll probably need 10 to 20 years of recuperation to fully recover." Bai Yanfei felt relieved and muttered, "As long as she's alive, everything else doesn't matter. It's all thanks to Martial Uncle Qingwei's panacea. If it weren't for the panacea protecting junior Martial Sister Wu's heart veins and dantian, I'm afraid she wouldn't have made it back." Bai Yanfei hastily turned around and expressed his gratitude. "Thank you, Martial Uncle Qingwei." Emo Tiange shook her head. "No need to thank me. I promised Senior Martial Sister Miaoi I'd take care of her." Kuang Zhu asked, "Martial Uncle Qingwei, what panacea did you use? Its medicinal effect is really amazing. I don't think I've seen it before." "It's the 9 Revolutions Yang Restoration Pill." "So it's the 9 Revolutions Yang Restoration Pill," Kuang Zhu said. "No wonder it has this kind of effect." The 9 Revolutions Yang Restoration Pill was very precious even for nascent soul cultivators. With his cultivation level, he still couldn't come into contact with this kind of panacea. Before long, Xianxia came over. "How is it?" Emo Tiange pointed at Wu Feishuang, who was lying on the ground. "Her life is saved, but..." Xianxia glanced at her and clearly saw the injuries on her body. He then said, "It's fine as long as she's alive. In the nascent soul realm, all body injuries will be healed." Emo Tiange thought to herself, "Soul formation? Senior Martial Sister Wu is still stuck in the core formation realm. I wonder how she'll react if she finds out she lost an arm." Just as she was thinking, Wu Feishuang's eyelids twitched and slowly opened. She first noticed Bai Yanfei in front of her, then her non-existent left arm. Unexpectedly, she only glanced at it and calmly accepted the reality. "Feishuang." Bai Yanfei was pleasantly surprised. "You're awake." Wu Feishuang turned her head and stared at Bai Yanfei, not saying anything for a long time. "How are you? Do you feel unwell?" Wu Feishuang shook her head softly and said slowly, "I don't feel unwell. Please go back." Her tone was distant and cold. Bai Yanfei was stunned. He stammered, "Feishuang, you're angry with me?" Wu Feishuang turned her head and didn't look at him. Bai Yanfei said, "I'm sorry But he couldn't go down. He didn't know how to apologize. "Sorry, I shouldn't have ignored you?" Or "Sorry, I didn't protect you well?" Or "Sorry, I won't do this again in the future?" He couldn't say these words out loud. He was touched when he saw her being taken away to save him, but, "No need to apologize," Wu Feishuang said faintly. "From now on, you don't need to apologize to me anymore." Bai Yanfei stared at her blankly. "You..." She took a deep breath, endured the sharp pain, and looked at her left side. There was nothing there, there wasn't an arm there. She said, "Don't misunderstand. I thought about it for a long time, I didn't do it in a moment of anger." Seeing Bai Yanfei's dumbfounded expression, Wu Feishuang smiled bitterly and said slowly, "I promised Master to come to Eastern Sea to give myself one last chance. Unfortunately, I still lost. Junior Martial brother, you never cared about me. When you married me, it was only because you were angry with Junior Martial Sister Jiang. Don't try to defend yourself. I'm not saying you like Junior Martial Sister Jiang, but you hate the feeling that others think you'll definitely marry junior martial sister Jiang. Therefore, by marrying me, you have to surprise those people. She looked up at him and said, "See, you've never loved me from beginning to end. There's no love between a man and a woman, and there's no love between husband and wife." Bai Yanfei was silent, unable to say anything. Wu Feishuang took a deep breath then continued, "Because of you, I've been stuck in the foundation building realm for many years. Every time I wanted to enter closed-door meditation, I always thought that your matter was more important than others. Therefore, I delayed my closed-door meditation year after year. By the time you formed your gold core, I still couldn't find the time. Junior martial brother, it's not that I'm willing to waste my time on these chores. I'm also a proud disciple of a nascent soul lord Daoist, and I was once a proud son of heaven. What you have, I don't lack. As master's last disciple, my aptitude is the highest among all my martial sisters and sisters. Not to mention forming my nascent soul, I've never had to worry about forming my gold core. I'm willing to handle chores for you every day, not because I like it, but. Bai Yanfei stared at her in a daze. It seemed like he'd never thought she actually thought this way in her heart. But I've never been in your eyes. From the moment we got married, you turned a blind eye to me. I know you're still very childish. Although you're already more than 100 years old, your heart is still like a child's, so I was willing to wait for you to grow up. But later, I found out that even after you grew up, you still wouldn't love me." She closed her eyes, took a deep breath then continued with a calm tone, "You're a good person, even if you're willful and arrogant. You're so nervous because I was injured because of you. Even if you start to treat me well, it's not because you have me in your heart, so I don't need you." Feishuang. Bai Yanfei felt like he wanted to say something, but he couldn't. Should he refute her? It seemed like what she said wasn't wrong, but, "Junior martial brother, I've decided to end it. My love isn't that great. If I can't get anything in return, I can only end it." She stared at Bai Yanfei then smiled again, but there were tears in the corners of her eyes. "Just think of it as me being selfish for leaving you at a time like this. You're a good person. I lost an arm for you, so you'll definitely remember me. Feishuang, when we return to Mount Taikong, I'll personally explain things to Martial Uncle Zhenyang and Master." She blinked away the tears in the corners of her eyes and said, "Maybe you'll have a very sad time, but it'll be over very soon." Bai Yanfei said in a daze. He didn't know what to say. He only felt that his temperament had been seen through and all his thoughts were known by her. He never thought this senior martial sister Wu was very important. Just like she said, he only married her because he was angry. In the past 100 years, he never cared about her. Even at this moment, he wasn't completely repentant, he was just sad that she was injured because of him. Love never existed, so there was no way to find it. He hated this feeling of being hit on the head by others, but this time, he was powerless to refute her because she knew him too well. From now on, I'll work hard for my nascent soul. I'll be 200 years old soon. If I can't form my gold core before I'm 300 years old, I'll never be able to reach the nascent soul realm. I'm sorry, junior martial brother. I lost to you for more than 100 years, so please let me win just this once. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, let's go. Qin she patted Bai Yanfei's shoulder. Let her recuperate first. Bai Yanfei was scared out of his wits. In the end, he turned around and left. He needed to think about what happened in the end and what he should do next. It was only after Bai Yanfei left that Wu Feishuang turned around and watched his back slowly disappear. Tiange looked at Wu Feishuang's expression and felt she didn't need to say anything, so she just sighed and comforted her. Recuperate well. Your arm might come back. Wu Feishuang's face was pale from the pain, but she could still show her a smile. Yes, thank you, Martial Uncle Qingwei. Tiange waved her hand then turned around and left. Chapter 583. When he returned to the sect head's main hall, Qin she was sitting in a daze. Tiange also sat down and asked, "Where's Bai Yanfei? Are you all right?" Qin she regained his train of thought and said, It can't get any worse. It won't just be depressed for a while, I reckon it'll turn into an inner demon. Oh. Mo Tiange looked pensive. Is this considered revenge? Junior brother Bai is quite pitiful. First, he suffered a blow from you, then he encountered such a thing. However, this was not necessarily a bad thing for him. He has already been firmly trapped by his heart's devil. If he suffers another blow, he might be able to rise from the dead. I hope so. Mo Tiange didn't have much hope. With Bai Yanfei's temperament, he wouldn't change unless he really underwent a transformation. In the next few days, Bai Yanfei stayed in his room. They knew Bai Yanfei needed time, so they didn't disturb him and let Fei Fei train those cultivators in his place. In comparison, Wu Feishuang was in a good condition. Although she couldn't repair her arm for the time being, and the injury wasn't something that could be healed in a day or two, she was in a good mood and could even crack jokes occasionally. Mo Tiange thought in her heart, this senior martial sister Wu. I'm afraid she's really here for revenge. However, her revenge is very direct. She clearly said she wanted Bai Yanfei to never forget her. She didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for Bai Yanfei. This child really deserved it. Who told him to not take care of her for more than 100 years? Even if he didn't love her, he still had to treat her well. But what about him? Because of him, Wu Feishuang, an elite among elites, was stuck at the foundation establishment stage even though she was almost 200 years old. No wonder senior sister Miaoyi was so angry. However, this was also good. Previously, Bai Yanfei was already trapped by his inner demon, and now he was even more thoroughly trapped. Maybe he really could come around and add another nascent soul lord Daoist to the sect. Even if he couldn't figure it out, Wu Feishuang would definitely be able to form her gold core after getting rid of this burden. With this thought in mind, Mo Tiange diligently went to see Wu Feishuang again. Martial Uncle Qingwei. Wu Feishuang was still lying on the bed. Her complexion wasn't as ugly as it was a few days ago. Mo Tiange nodded with a smile. How's the situation? Wu Feishuang replied, Senior brother Hanjian said that I don't need to fight anymore. I'll just lie here until we return to the sect. Mo Tiange nodded. You're seriously injured, so you naturally don't need to fight anymore. Yes, many thanks, martial uncle. The two of them didn't have much of a relationship, so they didn't say anything to each other. Mo Tiange thought for a moment, then asked straightforwardly, Martial nephew Wu, aren't you afraid martial nephew Zhifei will fall into a demonic barrier by doing this? Hearing this, Wu Feishuang smiled bitterly and said, I purposely wanted him to have his heart demon. Upon seeing the astonishment on Mo Tiange's face, she said, My master is Lord Daoist Miaoyi. I'm not that easy to bully. Since he married me, he shouldn't treat me like this. My patience is limited. For the past few years, I've been thinking about how to leave him and teach him a lesson. Now, I've finally found the opportunity. A strange expression appeared on Mo Tiange's face. Martial nephew Wu, if I didn't arrive in time that day, wouldn't you have lost your life? Don't tell me you're willing to bet your life for revenge? Wu Feishuang said faintly, I know master entrusted me to the two martial uncles, so presumably they wouldn't let me die in an accident. Even if I really died, it wouldn't be a big deal. The path of cultivation is fraught with dangers. Since I've embarked on the path of immortality, I should be prepared to lose my life at any time. Mo Tiange was speechless for a long time before she sighed. You're really bold. She really underestimated this senior martial sister Wu before. No, it should be said that everyone underestimated her. Speaking of which, she was Lord Daoist Miaoyi's disciple, so this kind of character wasn't strange. Although Lord Daoist Miaoyi looked gentle and amiable, her heart was actually very sinister. She recalled what Luo Fengxue once told her about Lord Daoist Miaoyi's past. If we're talking about scheming among us seniors, there's no need to mention martial uncle Zhenyang. He's a crafty old fox. The other one is martial uncle Miaoyi, Luo Fengxue said with fervor and assurance. Mo Tiange, who was only in the foundation building realm, was surprised. Martial uncle Miaoyi? No way, right? She's very amiable. That's just on the surface. Luo Fengxue stepped forward and said, I'll tell you something, but you have to keep your mouth shut. Mo Tiange nodded hurriedly. Luo Fengshue's gossip was usually about the sect's secrets, so there was no one else she could listen to. Luo Fengshue asked, "What do you think of martial Uncle Miaoi's appearance? What's her temperament like?" Mo Tiange answered, "Although martial Uncle Miaoi's appearance isn't devastatingly beautiful, it's picturesque, elegant, and refined. As for her temperament, I've only seen her a few times, but I already feel she's quite amiable. She doesn't even get angry when her disciples do something wrong." You're right. Martial Uncle Miaoi is beautiful, has a good temperament, and is also a nascent soul cultivator. Think about it. How many female cultivators are there among nascent soul cultivators? Many male nascent soul cultivators have core formation cultivators as their dual cultivation companions. How many people would fight over a nascent soul female cultivator like martial Uncle Miaoi? Mo Tiange nodded and said thoughtfully, "You're right, but martial Uncle Miaoi doesn't seem to have any peach blossoms." Of course, martial Uncle Miaoi killed all her peach blossoms. Mo Tiange asked curiously, "What happened?" I'll have to start from when martial Uncle Miaoi was still a core formation cultivator. Luo Fengshue talked nonstop. When martial Uncle Miaoi formed her gold core, she once discussed marriage with a male cultivator. That male cultivator was a core formation cultivator from Gujian sect. Reportedly, his aptitude was excellent, so he advanced to the core formation realm in about 100 years. If there were no mishaps, he would definitely be able to form his nascent soul in 300 years. Martial Uncle Miaoi was also known as a genius, and the two of them were about the same age, so they were a perfect match. In other words, the two of them were a perfect match. Exactly. Back then, other people were envious of them. What happened later? Mo Tiange became even more curious. Later on, did they become Dao companions? Almost, Luo Fengshue said. The two of them had known each other for 100 years and had deep feelings for each other, so they planned to become Dao companions before they formed their nascent souls. At that time, they could rely on the power of dual cultivation to advance to the nascent soul realm. Just as they were about to finish preparing for their dual cultivation ceremony, martial Uncle Miaoi suddenly came back and said she wanted to cancel the wedding. Luo Fengshue smiled. Do you know why? As it turns out, that male cultivator has an outstanding cultivation level, a handsome appearance, and a carefree and uninhibited temperament, so he attracted a lot of peach blossoms. Martial Uncle Miaoi also knew about this, but she didn't know this male cultivator had an inseparable relationship with those peach blossoms and was secretly dating behind her back. Mo Tiange wrinkled her brows and said, "That being the case, why did he still want to become Dao companions with martial Uncle Miaoi? Wouldn't it be more carefree to wander around by himself?" That's true, but where could he find a Dao companion like martial Uncle Miaoi? She has outstanding aptitude, a beautiful appearance, a gentle temperament, and she also has Xianxia School as her backer. She has no shortcomings at all. Martial Uncle Miaoi was kept in the dark? Luo Fengshue waved her hand. How could that be possible? Martial Uncle Miaoi is very smart. Besides, martial Uncle Xianxia and the others couldn't wait for martial Uncle Miaoi to not get married. Their sect cultivated such an outstanding disciple, so if she marries into another cultivation group, they'll get half of her nascent soul in the future. In fact, martial Uncle Miaoi already knew about that male cultivator's romantic affairs. She just pretended not to know and even took the initiative to propose to become Dao companions. That male cultivator couldn't wait to report to his master and prepare for the dual cultivation ceremony. Then, martial Uncle Miaoi secretly spied on him. Right when he was making love with a peach blossom in his cave, martial Uncle Miaoi suddenly appeared. How could he dare to tell others about this kind of thing? So she broke into his cave. And then, Mo Tiange listened with great interest. Luo Fengshue continued. Then, that male cultivator naturally wanted to clear his name, but martial Uncle Miaoi didn't say she already knew. She pretended she just found out and left very sadly. When she came back, she said she wanted to cancel the wedding. That male cultivator naturally chased after her to explain, But martial Uncle Miaoi closed the door and refused to see him, so he could only go back dejectedly. And then, Luo Fengxue couldn't hold back her smile anymore. Not long after that, martial Uncle Zhenyang sent a message saying martial Uncle Miaoi almost committed suicide. Mo Tiange asked, how did that person react? Naturally, it was too late for regrets. Martial Uncle Miaoi also asked someone to tell him that she would cut all ties with him in the future and focus only on the Great Tao. In short, it made him feel that because of him, martial Uncle Miaoi lost interest in living and deeply hated men. Although that person was a romantic, he sincerely loved martial Uncle Miaoi, so he was filled with endless regret. Not long after that, martial Uncle Miaoi formed her nascent soul earlier than him and became famous, so the regret in his heart evolved into an inner demon. Luo Fengxue vented her anger. At first, he only felt regret about canceling the wedding. But later, when he saw martial Uncle Miaoi formed her nascent soul earlier than him, he kept thinking about forming his nascent soul. How could it be easy for someone to form their nascent soul with such an obsession? His inner demon became deeper and deeper. What happened to him later? Later? I haven't heard of him for a long time. He seems to still be in the core formation realm. Thinking about the past, Mo Tiange sighed inwardly. This pair of master and disciple. How trustworthy were their methods? It seemed very simple, but it directly targeted the other person's temperament. That male cultivator from Gujin sect had the possibility of forming his nascent soul at such a young age, so he must have been very proud of himself. In the end, he lost to martial Uncle Miaoi. Moreover, Mo Tiange even betrayed her and almost caused her to lose her life. These two kinds of complicated emotions slowly evolved into inner demons. As for Wu Feishuang, she chose the right time to treat Bai Yanfei this way. Now, because of her, Bai Yanfei's temperament changed greatly. He no longer had the confidence to form his nascent soul, yet she still played such a trick on him. It would be strange if Bai Yanfei didn't have an inner demon. However, these two men didn't have bad consciences. If they were truly heartless men, it would have been ineffective. Wu Feishuang lowered her gaze. After a long time, she once again said softly, I admittedly deliberately retaliated against him, but this was originally a flaw in his mental state. If he could break through his inner demon, he'd definitely be able to form his nascent soul, so I wouldn't feel sorry for him. Mo Tiange stared at her, then suddenly asked, if Bai Yanfei really changed, would you forgive him? Wu Feishuang shook her head softly. I've never blamed him. He's just hasn't grown up yet. Mo Tiange was silent. Originally, she thought if Bai Yanfei chose Jiang Min, the two of them would have a higher chance of developing feelings for each other. But now, it seemed Wu Feishuang was the most suitable for him. Just as she was thinking, she suddenly heard Qin Shi's voice. Come here quickly. There's an important matter. Qin Shi went to patrol just now. Could it be that he discovered something? Mo Tiange hastily stood up, bid him farewell and returned to the sect head's main hall. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.